Fox Sports.
We are the Fox. We are the Lions.
It's another hot night and another big crowd expected here at Great American Ballpark as the Cincinnati Reds play the second of their three-game series with the St. Louis Cardinals. After the win by the road team last night, the Reds' lead in the National League Central is just one game over the Cards. And welcome back to the banks of the Ohio River. The Reds still on top, as we mentioned, by one game in the standings, but these games continue to be of great importance. Thanks for joining us tonight at Great American Ballpark. Paul Keels and Chris Welsh. And the Reds tonight, Chris, will put really their hopes in the hands of Johnny Cueto, who's been worthy of carrying a lot of those.
When you look at the pitching matchups in this series, this is obviously the one that matches up best for the Reds. You're sending Johnny Cueto out, 11-game winner, 5-1 in his last 9 starts and 6 quality starts in those last 9. So he's got really on a roll right now, and he's a guy that is going to carry the load in this ball game. They expect a low-scoring ball game. Jaime Garcia's pitched well against the Reds before, but for Johnny Cueto, it's all about his changeup and getting that ball over early in the process. Jaime Garcia is a guy, he's much like Mike Leake. He's a rookie. He's never pitched more than 150 innings in a year, and he's coming off a Tommy John surgery. So they're really watching his innings. They're watching his pitches. He's got a good curveball and a slider. Scouts tell me, though, he's throwing a lot more curveballs lately because his arm speed is not what it was early in the year. We'll see if he's regressing back to the norm enough for the Reds to jump all over him. Bottom line is a matchup of a couple of very good 24-year-olds, one lefty, one righty. We'll see which one of these guys ends up on top tonight.
The playoff atmosphere continues. The Reds and the Cardinals. We'll take a look at the production the Reds are getting from behind the plate when we continue.
and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
And as always, tonight's Reds broadcast on Fox Sports Ohio is presented in beautiful high definition, courtesy of H.H. Gregg. We again come to you from Great American Ballpark. The Reds and the Cardinals playing the second of a three-game series. Time to check out tonight's weather with Michelle Boutelet.
Well, it's going to be another hot night at the ballpark, but also humid as well. 92, but feeling more like 95, 96 by first pitch. Chance for a shower or thunderstorm, then dry by the end of the game, falling back into the mid-80s by 10.
Well, the Reds have certainly gotten massive production out of the two men who have occupied the position behind the plate this year, Chris.
Well, you don't want to call them a two-headed monster, but for other teams, that's really what they figure out to be. When you're able to put in a fresh catcher like they've been able to do with Ramon Hernandez and Ryan Hannigan, keeping each other fresh, but also playing well behind the plate. This is the way the pitchers kind of know who they're catching. For instance, Ryan Hannigan catches almost all the games started by Bronson Arroyo, and they've both been very good offensively. So from a defensive standpoint, offensive standpoint, can't argue one bit with what the Reds have in that catching core. And if you take a look offensively, 293 averages, tops in the league. They're second in runs batted in. They're third in on-base percentage. And that includes, of course, the work by Corky Miller while he was up here. That is getting it done behind the dish.
It certainly is. Handling the pitchers as well. Speaking of pitchers, it's Cueto and Garcia in Game 2 tonight. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. By Ford, F-Series trucks, the best-selling trucks 33 straight years. By Just for Men, for mustache and beard, keep your edge. And by Skyline Chili, whenever you're feeling good and hungry, it's Skyline time. Game 2 here at Great American Ballpark, Reds and Cardinals. 7-3 St. Louis winning last night, so Cincinnati's lead in the division over St. Louis now one game. And Tony La Russa's batting order that will take their turns against Jonny Cueto. Exactly as it was last night.
And it was like that last night. John Jay got it going. Albert Pujols hit the ball hard. Yadier Molina kept it going for Skip Schumacher last night, who hit that opposite field grand slam home run. Jaime Garcia, like Chris Carpenter, will bat in the number 8 spot, something Tony La Russa likes to do in his lineup. And Brendan Ryan, the shortstop, bats number 9. And Jonny Cueto's on the mound, and it's a good matchup for the Reds tonight with Cueto because he has been on a very good roll. 11-2 overall. He's got a sneaky fastball. It looks like he gives you very little effort, but all of a sudden that ball is right on you. He dominates left-handers, and it's odd because his batting average against left-handers much less than it is against right-handers, mainly because he's able to throw a real good changeup. In my opinion, his second-best pitch after the fastball, and he owes the Cardinals a payback. Last time he faced them, they roughed him up a little bit. We'll see if he's ready for him tonight.
And he has won his last 5 decisions in a row. Jonny Cueto, he starts it off against former Red Felipe Lopez, who had a base hit in 5 at-bats last night. And we have gone on so much about the success of the Cardinals pitchers, but Jonny Cueto's second in the National League in winning percentage, right behind Ubaldo Jimenez of Colorado. So that shows what he's done over a long haul. There's Lopez from the left side. Another warm one. 95 degrees at the start of the game here at Great American, and it is supposed to be even hotter tomorrow afternoon. 1-2 the count to the Cardinals' third baseman, the leadoff batter.
Johnny's coming out throwing hard tonight, and he knows it. The first thing he did after he threw that last pitch, which recorded 95 on our gun, 93 on the radar gun here at the ballpark, was turn around, look at the radar gun reading.
And his break-even pitch, Lopez to left, and Jonny Gomes misplays it. And Felipe Lopez will end up at second base. That'll be an error on Gomes in left field.
Well, error all the way, but I can tell you one thing. After watching Adam Dunn play left field for many years and talking to him about it on a regular basis, this is the toughest place to play left field in all of Major League Baseball. When the sun comes down, and at this time of year, the shadow will go away after about the first half inning. But you can't see the ball come off the bat. You're in the bright sunlight. You're trying to block that sun with your glove, and all of a sudden here comes a line drive. You break in, you break back, you're not sure where the ball is, all of a sudden it's off your glove. Tough break.
And it sets it up for John Jay, who shows bunt.
And I say that, Paul, because Jonny Gomes has been better than advertised defensively this year. He has worked hard at it. He's a pretty doggone good left fielder. Just a tough break right there. We'll see if Jonny Cueto can pick up Jonny Gomes.
And there you see Jonny Gomes still dealing with that high sun. A couple of base hits for John Jay last night. He gets the bunt down and moves Lopez on over to third base on the sacrifice bunt. Here's a look at the Reds defense as they are aligned, thanks to our friends from Ford. Gomes in left, where we saw Lance Nix last night. Chris Heisey in right in place of Jay Bruce. And the regulars around the infield with Hernandez behind the plate. So with one out and Lopez on a third, Albert Pujols now at the plate, and this sets up the Cardinals, who lead the National League in batting with runners in scoring position at 284. And certainly Pujols a big part of that. He is at 362, sixth best in the league. Two for four with an RBI and a run scored last night for Albert Pujols in the 7-3 win for the Cardinals. Mark Wegner calling the balls and strikes behind the plate. Mark Carlson is at first. Jeff Kellogg at second. Third, Larry Vanover. And there's what Albert does in these situations. Right back up the middle, but Phillips there to make the play. The run will come in as Pujols is retired. 2 down to the Cardinals with a 1-0 lead. So an RBI for Pujols.
Well, they're trying to come inside right there on Albert, and boy, he does come inside. Nice movement on the fastball. Jonny Cueto, if he's able to flag that ball down on the way, it'll keep the run from scoring. And it goes right through the wickets. Man, that's got to be frustrating because it's happened to me. You feel like you ought to be able to knock that ball down, at least catch it off your shin. But the Cards taking advantage of an early gift.
So now Jonny Cueto will turn his attention to Matt Holliday. 2 base hits, 1 driven in and a run scored last night.
Yeah, I mentioned it before, Paul. Power pitchers like Cueto, who use their legs so much to drive through the plate, oftentimes find themselves in not the most ideal position to field balls that come right back over the box.
And that one got there in a hurry.
Just shows you how quick Albert is on an inside pitch. I mean, that ball was in on his hands. And he was able to get his hands in close to his body, get the bat head through, put the bat on the ball strong enough to hit it sharply and quickly by the pitcher.
There's one of the Exmo shots last night that really showed how he's able to get around on that. There's not much he doesn't do at a very high level. They ring him up. 2-1 now.
If you're watching the radar gun readings on Jonny Cueto, interesting to know, most of the fastballs he will throw will be somewhere 92 to 94. He'll throw a cutter, and that last pitch was a nice little cutter, anywhere from 89, 90, 91, something like that. That ball just move away from a right-hander ever so slightly. So what do you do after you cut a ball away from a right-hander like you did on Holiday? You come right back in with an inside fastball that has a tendency to come in on your thumbs. That cutter has been a big pitch for him the last couple of years.
Cueto with a count now 2-2, stares into Ramon Hernandez for the sign. And foul ball.
In and out and in and out.
Keep him guessing. Run in, 2 out, and a count 2-2 to Matt Holliday. Down he goes on strikes. But St. Louis on an error gets it set up to score a run. Given the top of the first, 1-0.
Seven spot. Jonny Gomes back in the lineup against the left-hander. Jaime Garcia, Heisey in there and right. Actually, Heisey is playing right field tonight against the left-hander as well. And we'll see if the Reds can get something going right out of the chute.
And against a young left-hander who got batted around his last time out against Houston.
He did. His last couple of starts have been a little bit on the rough side. He started out very strong. And, you know, a lot of times you see a young guy catch fire early on and then come back to the norm. And I think that's what's happened to Mike Leake. We saw it last night.
Yadier Molina right in the face of Brandon Phillips. And we've yet to set the stage about everything that happened, and you get a look at it. For those who may not have known, Brandon Phillips last night, to both Jim Day and Hal McCoy, made some comments about the Cardinals, saying he hates the Cardinals, and used some less than family language in his descriptions. And as soon as Brandon got to the plate, Yadier Molina got in his face. Now there's Roland and Molina, former teammates. This series has been void of bad blood probably until the end of the night last night. And there's Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa. They've had their issues with one another over the years.
Well, I'm really stunned that a war of words would actually cause the benches to empty before they get going in the bottom of the first inning. Obviously, some discourse between Yadier Molina and Brandon Phillips sparked the whole thing. We won't know until after a game exactly what was said. Now Scott Rowland is getting into it.
And now it is turning ugly.
With Chris Carpenter. And Carpenter's the one down there chirping.
Carpenter had issues with his own teammates last night, and it is getting really ugly as we've got punches and kicks. Johnny Cueto, the starting pitcher, is being wrestled away.
And this is not good at all, because this is the kind of situation where somebody can get up, get hurt, get their finger stepped on, and it's just not baseball. I'm hoping that the umpires can get this thing under control and we can get on to playing the game of baseball, because nothing is going to be solved by this. But I will tell you one thing, that there is not a lot of love between these two ball clubs, despite the fact that a lot of players on each team have played for the other team before. Now there's going to be some ejections, and we're going to find out who.
And without question, some suspensions and fines to follow as well. And you nailed it, Chris. It was Chris Carpenter who seemed to be kind of in the middle of some of the worst of it.
Well, if he's not whining about his own teammates, he's whining about somebody else. He had it out with his own player last night in Brendan Ryan, because Ryan had a wrong glove at the beginning of the game and then was playing in the wrong spot to snag a ball that went for an RBI base hit. La Russa's going to have to try to sort it out with his guys. Dusty Baker's going to sort it out with his guys. Hopefully nobody got hurt here, because that would be a real shame.
Right now he doesn't appear so, Chris, but Scott Rowland, who was trying to play peacemaker, at one point we saw a good look of him talking with Yadier Molina. That appeared to be going okay, but then that's maybe where Chris Carpenter intervened. Well, when Brandon Phillips was introduced to come out to the plate, he got a big round of applause from the fans here.
Well, I don't see Brandon Phillips in the mix anymore. I'm wondering if he was the one that got ejected.
Well, there he is going right down the steps now, and that is very possible.
This is not going to be easy for these umpires to try to figure out either. And you know what? This is ridiculous right here.
And it appeared that Yadier Molina was the one who verbally instigated it.
Now, Rowland's trying to break it up right here. So he's the peacemaker immediately, and this is where it all should have stopped. But there's going to be some drawing back and forth. And now there's a little pushing. And, of course, when it's hot, you've got emotions flaring, you hit the boiling point, and a flash causes a big problem, and this just evolves into something bigger and bigger until it took a few minutes now, probably 4 or 5 minutes, for the thing to escalate and then settle down. I mean, this is calm right here.
Yes,
everybody's
it is.
empty from the bullpen. There's nothing going on. We'll start look at the beginning of it again.
And again, some of it appeared as though, and it's hard to tell for sure, but when Brandon was stepping in, Molina through the mask started chirping at Brandon Phillips a little bit.
You know, I'm really surprised, though. I mean, Brandon Phillips may have sparked something by saying a quote about the Cardinals and calling them whiny guys. But this is at the end of it, and this is where it gets kind of scary. This is Chris Carpenter right here against the fence. He's being pushed up there, and Scott Rowland was after him because evidently Rowland and Carpenter have gotten into it about something.
And somebody was down there at the bottom, and there was some kicking.
Here's Johnny Cueto being pushed up against the fence more than anybody, the starting pitcher for tonight. They finally get him out of the melee.
Looked like Arthur Rhodes was down there toward the bottom of the pile.
Dusty
as well.
Baker's going to go out and argue for his guys. And I'll tell you what he's saying. He's saying, you know what? Yadier Molina is the guy that started this thing. And if he gets thrown out, if he doesn't get thrown out of the ball game and my guy gets thrown out of the ball game, there's something wrong with this scene. And right now, Yadier Molina is staying in the ball game, and I don't see any sign of all of Brandon Phillips.
Brandon was, he's down there at the bottom of the steps in the dugout now.
This is not going to be an easy thing for these umpires to adjudicate.
No, not at all. And now Tony La Russa is going to get a little hearsay. So a tough job for the umpires and probably tough for the managers, too, if there are some ejections. And it appeared, though, Chris, that Brandon Phillips was set to just step in and get ready to hit.
Well, you know, how often do you see a catcher going up and go face-to-face with the leadoff hitter? This is all Molina. And I know I'm the Reds announcer, but I can tell you the whole thing was sparked by the catcher saying something to Brandon Phillips.
Now, Brandon Phillips is coming back into the on-deck circle, so it appears for the moment there's nothing involving his status, nor Molina's for that matter.
Maybe it's the managers that have been thrown out.
That is what the indication.
There's no Dusty Baker and there's no Tony La Russa. Maybe they'll meet underneath the stadium.
Well, they've had their moments. And there's no other indication of players at this point. But you know that Major League Baseball will be looking into this and more than likely suspensions and fines. So our indication is that Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa both have been tossed from the game. That puts the Reds in the hands of Chris Beyer right now. 1-0, by the way, in case you've forgotten, St. Louis with the lead. So Jaime Garcia going to work on Brandon Phillips. And Phillips will bounce this one slowly towards second base, and Schumacher returns it for the first out. Let's check in down on the field with Jim Day with an update on whatever may have happened. JD?
Well, the managers have been tossed out of this game, guys. So our indication that no players have been tossed out. Obviously, Brandon Phillips just hit there. Scott Rowland is still in the dugout. Arthur Rhodes is down underneath the tunnel. I'm not sure of his availability. But yesterday, Al McCoy and I were by Brandon Phillips' locker, and he basically, without being prompted, said, I hate the Cardinals. And he went on to say a lot more colorful things. Now, a lot of times when that happens, when you come in the next day, the player will say, well, I was misquoted, or I didn't mean it, or I said it off the record. Today, Brandon Phillips stood by it. In fact, he said, doesn't matter what me or Tony La Russa says, it matters who wins. But he certainly fueled the fire and stood by his comments today. He was not misquoted.
Well, and it drew the ire after the game of Tony La Russa, even so much so, according to some newspaper reports, as Paul Janisch is the next batter, that he even flagged down a couple of the St. Louis writers after he had made some initial comments to them to further go on about it. Now, there's Brandon Phillips.
That's a war of words. I mean, big deal. I mean, this is like fourth grade playground stuff. You're going to go to fight over one guy calling you a name?
Now, it probably
wouldn't. This is big league baseball. You know, for one team to react, or for one guy to react, whether it's Yadier Molina or Brandon Phillips, actually want to fight because somebody called him a name, you got to be kidding me.
Well, now, if the Cardinals and Garcia had buzzed him close with a pitch, or maybe even plunked him a little bit.
That's a whole different story at that point. That's when the umpires get involved. That's when Major League Baseball gets involved. I'm just happy no one got hurt, and I hope no one did get hurt in this thing. Let's hope cooler heads prevail and we get to play some baseball.
Yes, this is still a big series. Paul Janisch on the 2-2 pitch sends this one into right field, where it's chased by John Jay for the second out. Well, Tony La Russa, Dusty Baker, they've had their issues, as we've
Let's
said.
go back a few years when Dusty Baker was managing the San Francisco Giants, and La Russa at the helm of the Cardinals. Randy Marsh, the home plate umpire, trying to keep them apart. These guys didn't exactly send Christmas cards to each other here for the next few years.
Nice hit. And where did it catch him?
And then when Dusty Baker took over the Chicago Cubs, the same kind of thing happened. La Russa pointing to Baker across the field in Chicago. There's a history, yes.
Yes.
You combine the history, you combine the close race we've got, you combine 105-degree, feels like heat here in Cincinnati, you've got everything set up for a hot time for the next 2 days.
Joey Votto, the 2-out batter, and he's in a 2-strike hole to Jaime Garcia. We talked quite a while ago. You know, one of the scariest things you ever saw in a fight with somebody getting hurt was a former teammate of yours, Dave Rozema. When he was pitching for Detroit, and a fight broke out at Tiger Stadium with Minnesota. Rozema came out of the bullpen and tried to do a flying karate kick. I believe it was Ken Landreau stepped away, and Rozema tore his knee up. 1-2 to Joey Votto. One for 3 last night for the Reds' first baseman. So 1-0 St. Louis with the lead. By the way, the matchups between Baker and LaRussa, 93 and 93 going into the game tonight. And we do get word from Jim Day down in the dugout. Nobody is hurt, so everybody's okay in that regard. But
Cueto was right in the middle of that.
He was.
And, you know, that's the one thing you don't want. And not necessarily, I mean, obviously you don't want to get him hurt. But you also want him to be cool and collected and not go out there and pitch with too much emotion. He's an emotional guy anyway. You don't want him going out there trying to throw the ball 105 miles an hour. He's got to just pitch his game, which is relax, throw his strikes, change his speeds, and do what he normally does to run that record up there. But this just notches, this is ratchets it up a notch or two. Boy, there's a buzz in this ballpark now.
Yes, there is. 1-2 to Joey Votto. And he's down on strikes. After one full here at Great American. Cardinals with a 1-0 lead over the Reds. Serious lawyers for serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK Ohio. You'll get a look at some of this, what's going on as far as the bench strength. However, as you get a glimpse of some of what's been done by Paul Janisch and Miguel Cairo, as well as Chris Heisey, the big story right now is the bad blood that has escalated between these two teams because of the scrap that just occurred in the bottom of the first inning. And there's Ramon Hernandez out to try and settle Jonny Cueto, following up on just what you were talking about.
Yeah, and Mark Wagner, the home plate umpire, is out there too. And I hope he gave him more, and he probably did, saying, listen, our radar is up right now, and we're going to take very seriously anything that happens that even closely appears to us like it's you throwing at batters or coming inside like you don't normally do and hit a guy. So pitch your ball game, but don't let the emotions of that little bench clearing ball change the game for you. And I think he probably gave Jaime Garcia the same cock.
And Garcia seemed to sail right through that without things having escalated any further.
1-2-3 inning.
Colby Rasmus to lead off the inning here for St. Louis Cardinals with a 1-0 lead. An error that allowed Felipe Lopez to reach second, and the ball misplayed and left by Jonny Gomes. John Jay, a sacrifice bunt, and then Pujols, an RBI on a bounce out, has brought in the one Cardinal run of the night. And a sky-high pop for Rasmus that Scott Rowland will give chase for, but out of play. And not only, Chris, I'm sure were warnings given to the pitchers, but there's probably by the umpiring crew maybe even a little rabbit ears now about any chatter coming out of either of these dugouts.
You know, the interesting thing, Paul, is we mentioned this earlier, that there are so many players on each team that have played for the previous team. I mean, this is a ball club. These two teams are really intertwined. I mean, you know, the Reds have Walt Jocketty as their general manager now. He used to be the general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. And here are all the former Reds: Lopez, LaRue, Dennis Reyes, Kyle Loesch, and Ryan Franklin. And the former Cardinals who are on the Reds: Roland Cairo, Jim Edmonds, Springer, and Mike Lincoln. So there's a lot of crossover here that makes this whole thing even more interesting.
One out on the fly ball by Rasmus as it's popped to Drew Stubbs in center, and there he is while jockeying. And Yadier Molina even leaning over to talk with Ramon Hernandez as he comes to the plate. Well, again, you never know for sure, but as best as we could tell through a lot of the replays that we looked at, when Brandon Phillips came to the plate, it appeared Brandon was set to hit.
I'm not a very good lip reader, and I'm even a worse lip reader in Spanish.
¿Por qué? Well, Molina at the plate last night certainly was able to do his job. A couple of base hits and scored a run for St. Louis.
Hey, one thing, though, that Johnny Cueto's first fastball to Molina was 96, the best he's thrown all night.
Molina with a key infield single in that 7-run fourth for St. Louis that got the bases loaded and set it up for Schumacher's grand slam. Schumacher on deck. 2-1 the count. This is the 15th straight game that Yadier Molina has started behind the plate.
Big key for Johnny Cueto, just control his emotions out here, pitch his ball game. This win in the standings more important than his emotions, how he feels about the Cardinals.
Well, he's now in a 3-1 situation.
And he wants to know where that 2-1 cutter was right there.
Now the count runs full on Molina.
Man, he's throwing hard tonight.
And you've talked before, Chris, you know, what's been his problem sometimes is having these innings where they're big pitch counts.
Yeah, you're right. And more early in the year than later, although we've seen some recently. For the most part, Johnny Cueto doesn't put him away when he should.
And Molina to left field. Gomes getting a late break back at the wall is Gomes.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, Molina with his 5th home run of the year. Then it's 2-0 St. Louis.
Well, you got to hand it to Molina. He stepped up when he had to right there, and he turned on a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Open wound, pour in salt.
So the Cardinals up a couple of runs. And at the plate now, the guy that had the big blow last night, Skip Schumacher, with the 4th delivered with his first career grand slam. Yadier Molina, who homered here on opening day with the bases loaded. There's a look at 2010 for Skip Schumacher. Home run last night was his 4th, as you can see, and his first career grand slam. Schumacher hitting in the 7th spot. The pitcher Jaime Garcia hitting 8th. 2-0 St. Louis. Cueto had Schumacher reaching on that. It was also a career high 4 RBI night last night for the Cardinals second baseman. Gomes, second out. And Brandon Phillips, well, if you want to think he was the powder keg with some editing, here's kind of what he talked about last night with Jim Day and Al McCoy.
I play against these guys with one leg. We have to beat these guys. I hate the Cardinals. All they do is complain and moan about everything. All of them. They're little babies. Not sure he said exactly that, but that's our translation. All of them. I really hate the Cardinals. Compared to the Cardinals, I love the Chicago Cubs. Let me make this clear.
And he did. So with 2 outs, it's Garcia, who has 7 hits on the year in 37 at-bats. Right back to Johnny Cueto. And the inning ends with the Cardinals tack on another on Molina's home run. 2-0 St. Louis after an inning and a half. Towards center field during tonight's game, Charles Donnerworth of Cincinnati will win this beautiful new Tundra on display here at Great American Ballpark. Register for your chance to win at an upcoming game by visiting your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. Bottom of the second, St. Louis 2, Cincinnati nothing. The Cardinals got their second run in the top half of this frame on Yadier Molina's 5th homer of the season. Scott Rowland to lead off the bottom of the second for the Reds against Jaime Garcia. Scott Rowland 0 for 3 last night. Almost up here. I believe that went in the radio booth. Marty Brenneman and Jeff Randley. So now 1-1 the count to Scott Rowland. On deck, Jonny Gomes. Garcia got him out in front on that one. Here's what Scott Rowland has done in the last week and a half worth of games anyway. And Rowland yanks this one, but foul down the third baseline. Tried to play a little peacemaker out there in the scrap that started up in the bottom of the first inning. Scott Rowland, and the next thing you know, he found himself in the middle of a hurricane.
Exactly. I mean, he was one of the first ones out there to pull Brandon Phillips away, and then when it kind of reignited, he was right in the middle of it.
Swings and misses on strike 3, Scott Rowland. Second strikeout of the night for Jaime Garcia. Time to take a look at the forward defense for the St. Louis Cardinals and how they are deployed, now being run by bench coach Joe Patini. Same outfield as last night. Same infield as last night. That's our forward defense for St. Louis. Both managers were ejected, Tony La Russa and Dusty Baker. So, as you mentioned, it's Joe Patini, the bench coach for the Cardinals, running their show. Chris Spire running the show for the Reds. Jonny Gomes, the one-out batter.
You know what may end up coming out of some of this, Paul? And obviously, when Major League Baseball takes a look and looks very closely at the video from just about every angle that both TV affiliates, both the Reds on Fox Sports Ohio and Fox Sports Midwest of St. Louis, are going to take a look. They're going to have a lot to look at. And it would not surprise me at all that we see some suspensions based on that fight. You know, it's maybe not through the umpires. They couldn't sort it all out because it all happened in real time, and you can't start showing blame to everybody. So instead of throwing out half the team,
Jonny Gomes sends one to right center field. But there's Rasmus to chase that one down.
Instead of throwing out half the team, you eject the managers, and then you go on with the game. Because after all, close to 40,000 people want this game being played, and they want it being played by their stars. But they'll look at this tape. Now, I suspect that when they see this tape, they're going to find some reason to suspend some guys on both sides of this team, or both sides of the game on both teams. And it could affect very directly this pennant race, depending on who and how long.
It could be quite a few people, along with appropriate fines as well. Chris Heisey, the 2-out batter. Heisey getting the start in right field tonight. With the left-hander on, Jay Bruce starts the night on the bench. Came in as a pinch hitter and stayed in the game as a defensive replacement in left field. Heisey's been getting quite a bit of time. Started 6 of the last 8 games in center field. Tonight is his 6th start of the year in right field. And that's a fair ball. Lopez with a nice play to retire Chris Heisey after 2 full here at Great American. 2-1 St. Louis. Reds, or log on to Reds.com.
I think the gnomes were fashioned after some of our guys that work in the truck.
Gomes gnomes. There's Jonny Gomes out in left field. Reds find themselves down a couple of runs, 2-0 to St. Louis, as the Cardinals will face Johnny Cueto here in the top of the 3rd. The 9-batter, Brendan Ryan, the shortstop, followed by third baseman Felipe Lopez and right fielder John Jay.
Well, Jaime Garcia looks very sharp tonight, so you can't really give much more to the Cardinals right now.
Golden throws out Ryan for the first out. And really key in the whole thing was the error by Lopez, the leadoff batter. It was a 2-base error by Jonny Gomes in left field. He was sacrificed to third and scored on a bounce out by Pujols.
I wonder if they may even go back and take a look at that particular play by Jonny Gomes, because you see official scorers sometimes when the sun gets in guys' eyes and they can't see the ball and make the play, they give a guy a base hit. And it could be argued that the same thing happened to Jonny Gomes here just a couple of innings later. No shadows, no problem, no sunglasses. That's not an easy play.
No. Mentioned the scoring change that came about yesterday from a week ago in Pittsburgh.
I mean, this is really no difference than losing a ball in the sun. It's a tough call for the official score, I guess, having never stood out there, but I can tell you that sun is as bright as it is here in August as it was in June and July, when the sun would be in the outfielder's eyes for the first 4 or 5 innings.
1-2 the count to Felipe Lopez. may surprise some people that Felipe Lopez has a higher career batting average against the Reds than does Albert Pujols. Lopez at 377 against the Reds. Pujols at 363.
Well, if he had hit 377 as a Red, he would still be a Red.
He'd still be here.
A very talented player, always has been. He's worn a lot of different uniforms. Felipe has. Some early in his career had some maturity issues, no doubt. But he has always had a ton of talent. And I'm wondering if maybe playing next to Albert Pujols has helped him.
Left center. Converging Gomes and Stubbs. Jonny Gomes has it for the second out of the inning. Right now, you can chat with Hall of Fame baseball writer Hal McCoy. Plus, get the latest from Bengals camp on FoxSportsOhio.com. Presented by 1-800-SAVE-AUTO and SafeAuto.com. There's Hal McCoy. It was Hal and Jim Day who had that small audience with Brandon Phillips. The comments that, you know what the comments did. We've covered that. John Jay for 2 out. And last night was a pretty good example of how John Jay has taken advantage of the playing time he has now fallen into in right field with a trade of Ryan Ludwig. Fouls that off the mask of Ramon Hernandez, but John Jay 2 for 4. He had a double. Guy gets around the bases in a hurry.
He's not a bad player at all. In fact, the Cardinals really gave him a huge vote of confidence when they traded Ryan Ludwig off to the San Diego Padres and gave John Jay the everyday spot in right field.
Very early in the season, we saw glimpses of some of his defense in that series in St. Louis, the first in St. Louis, when he was able to throw out a base runner trying to go from first to third on a base hit. Something the Reds over the course of the whole year have done a very good job of.
I think one thing about Jay and his setup, yes, he starts his hands low, but he gets them up in a good hitting position by the time the pitch is underway. He has rhythm in the batter's box. A lot of hitters go up there and they have no movement at all. And it is very difficult for most hitters to hit without movement. I mean, Paul Molitor was able to do it without a whole lot of movement at all, and he was very good. But there aren't too many that can. And Jay kind of gets that rhythm going a little bit, trying to get some timing.
Paul Molitor made it look so easy.
Well, some guys are just so talented that maybe it is easy for them.
Hall of Fame easy. 2-2 the count to John Jay. Played collegiately at the University of Miami, or some people like to call it the U. Up the middle, but there's Giannis playing it behind the bag. And he guns it up. Cardinals retired 2-0. St. Louis with the lead after 2.5. Stay connected through Reds fan blogs or write your own. Join the online forum, sign up for text updates, and find out about upcoming chats with your favorite players. Plus, follow Reds like Mike Leake on Twitter. Log on to Reds.com/ and Drew Stubbs hits a loud foul. Let me finish that. Follow Mike Leake and others on Twitter. Log on to Reds.com/connect to get started today. 2-0 St. Louis with the lead. Reds come to bat here in the bottom of the third inning. It'll be Drew Stubbs leading it off.
Swinging at the first pitch, Stubbs did, but Felipe Lopez was playing very close at third base, trying to convince Drew Stubbs maybe bunting right now would not be a good idea. Now he's back even with the bag.
Jaime Garcia works inside. He is yet to yield a base hit to the Reds.
Well, he's had a very good breaking ball, and that's been his calling card all year long. Good slider, real good curveball lately. Although he got beat up his last time, that's a pretty good looking changeup. He's got all the pitches. He's a rookie, one of the leading candidates in the league to win Rookie of the Year.
And he's got Stubbs facing a 2-2 count. And it runs full. Garcia born in Mexico, but he went to high school in Mission, Texas. It's a pleasant surprise at the start of the year for the Cardinals, but he issues a walk to Drew Stubbs to give the Reds a base runner. So the first walk Garcia has issued, Stubbs on down to first base. Hey, sports fans, this Sunday, directly following the Reds live postgame show, stay tuned to FSN Ohio and catch all of the action from the Pro Football Hall of Fame Enshrinement Festival, Timken Grand Parade from Canton, Ohio. It's a one-of-a-kind celebration. We may have goofed on that. That was last weekend. Unless I missed something.
I think you were right.
Ramon Hernandez, who homered last night, steps to the plate to face Jaime Garcia. And Ramon was the one Reds batter who was able to show some production last night. 3 base hits, including that solo homer. We showed a little note earlier about the production the Reds have gotten from their duo of catchers with Hernandez and Ryan Hannigan. And not to be forgotten, the contributions of Corky Miller, while both Hannigan and Hernandez had different stints of being out while injured. Looked like Stubbs maybe possibly was looking to get on the move from the base fans. Ramon, coming into this game, has hit safely in 7 of his last 8 baseball games. 2-0 St. Louis with a lead. Here in the bottom of the third. Tonight started with the Reds owning a 1-game lead over the Cardinals in the National League Central. Stubbs drawing attention. 18 stolen bases here in 2010. Count 1-1. With Stubbs leading at first, and Garcia again will pay attention to it. Garcia has held his own here in 2010 against the Reds. Has 2 winning decisions, one here at Great American and one at Busch Stadium.
Well, he's not an easy guy to steal on. Of course, no one is easy to steal on the Cardinal staff because of Yadier Molina. Molina not only has hit a home run, but he also has established himself throughout his career as one of the best defensive catchers around.
Count 2-1. And a base hit for Hernandez. First knock of the night for the home team.
Boy, has Ramon Hernandez been huge. It seems like every time Dusty Baker writes him into the lineup, he comes up with some big hits. He finds a hole between the third baseman and shortstop, and the Reds have something going now.
Hernandez now hitting safely in 8 of his last 9.
Now it's important with nobody out, first and second. You could not set up any better for having your pitcher come to the plate right here. So Jonny Cueto needs to get a bunt down. He wants to get a bunt down the third baseline. You want to make Felipe Lopez field it because you've got Albert Pujols coming in really aggressively from first base. He's going to be shooting the gap right here. This is where Cueto wants it, on the left side.
And as you saw, 6 sacrifice bunts successfully executed by Jonny Cueto.
Now, put yourself in the shoes of Jaime Garcia. You're thinking, all right, I've given him a strike, and now I'm going to go for a strikeout because I really don't want him to advance those runners. I'd be very surprised if he just piped the fastball down there and let Cueto have an easy one to lay down. He's going to make him hit a tough breaking ball, over-the-top breaking ball, curveball, slider. They're not easy to get down for most pitchers.
They come charging from the corners. Cueto gets the bunt down, and he will advance the runners on his 7th sacrifice bunt of the year. So they're at second and third.
Well, the Cardinals put the swing play on right here. That means the third baseman charges, the first baseman charges, the shortstop covers the third base. But the problem is that thwarts this is the speed of Drew Stubbs. If you have a catcher running from second or third, they may have a play at third base. But because Stubbs is so fast, batting in the number 7 spot, you know, maybe that was the thought by Dusty Baker down the road. You ever get first and second, and you get Stubbs on second base, very unlikely they're going to be able to get that lead runner. So a great opportunity for the Reds to punch a run in here. All Brandon needs to do is hit the ball into the outfield.
1 out. Runners at second and third for Brandon Phillips. And he struggled this year against the Cardinals. It's another big house here trying to get behind the Reds. And Jaime Garcia finds himself in a jam. Count now even at 1-1. 3 for 9 is Brandon Phillips against Jaime Garcia with a home run. Drew Stubbs, who received the walk, is at third base. Ramon Hernandez, who singled, is at second. 1-1. Now 2-1.
I'll tell you, Jaime Garcia tonight is throwing about 75% breaking balls, either sliders or curveballs. Brandon looks like he's waiting for a piece of cheese to come up there.
Phillips trying to snap an 0 for 11 hitless streak. 3-1.
You know, if I'm Jaime Garcia, I wouldn't be all that disappointed in putting Brandon Phillips on base here with 1 out. You got Paul Giannis coming up next, not nearly the hitter that Phillips is, and you set up a double play anywhere.
Schumacher with it. Phillips retired, but the run comes in. 2-1 Cardinals.
Well, the bump by Cueto helped the Reds play a little small ball right there on a 3-1 changeup by Jaime Garcia. He was not going to give in to Brandon Phillips and pipe a fastball. So now the lead is 1.
Hernandez at third. Paul Giannis. A fly ball to right in his first at-bat. Presented with an RBI opportunity. And he looks at a strike from Garcia. Last night was the first game since Paul Giannis has been the everyday shortstop following the Cabrera injury that he did not get a base hit. And in tight pitch. Paul Giannis with runners in scoring position, 545. got to admit, was surprised at that. Good eye by the Red shortstop. And there you see how the Reds stack up right behind tonight's opponent with runners in scoring position. 3-1, just like Garcia faced against Phillips. And RBI for Brandon Phillips, by the way, was his 44th of the year. On deck, Joey Votto. The Reds down a run. Hernandez at third. 3-2 now to Paul Giannis.
You see that he's coming after Paul Giannis with fastballs. He went after Brandon Phillips with curveballs and changeups. Didn't want to challenge Phillips, but he's coming right after Paul Giannis. You know why? Joey Votto is on deck. So one way to protect the hitter who you think maybe a little bit less than with some power is to put him in front of a great hitter like Votto.
Ball 4. Second walk of the inning. I think you mentioned it last night, Chris. If you want to be an MVP, these are the kind of situations that you need to deliver.
I'll tell you what, the fans are into it here at Great American Ballpark. About half of them are standing. They've been a buzz ever since the bottom of the first inning when both benches emptied.
And it does have a playoff feel. Joey Votto, a strikeout victim in the first inning.
Well, Joey got a steady diet of breaking balls the first time up. Finally went down swinging on a curveball. And he's got to figure nothing's going to be a whole lot different right here. I mean, Garcia may get him a fastball, but it will probably be a little bit off the plate. One of those teaser pitches.
You heard and been paying attention for weeks how high Joey Votto is in the National League stats. There's so many offensive categories, including tied for second in home runs. Base hit. That'll go to right field and bring another run in to tie the ball game. And Paul Giannis is fortunate to get back at second base as he stumbled going around the bag. However, Hernandez scores on Joey Votto's RBI base hit, and the game is in.
Well, a rocket by Joey Votto on a slider up. I mean, he just rips this ball into right center field. Giannis comes around second, decides to stop and then fall. But Brendan Ryan gets the relay, doesn't realize Giannis is falling down. He gets back to the bag. Hernandez scored, and we are all tied up again.
RBI number 76 for that man, Joey Votto. And Paul Giannis, that man, the potential go-ahead run with Scott Rowland at the plate. Rowland struck out to lead off the second inning. Rowland pops this one. Pujols meandering to foul territory. And he's able to make the play to end the inning. However, the Reds score 2 to tie the game. And after 3 full here at Great American, we are even at 2.
to that.
Tony La Russa and Dusty Baker both were ejected after that.
And did you see the guy who was right in between Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa? It was Jim Edmonds. If you're Jim Edmonds, really, you've been with the Reds for one day.
Wow. There's Yadier Molina, who's also hit a home run. Albert Pujols to lead off the top of the fourth for St. Louis, but the Reds scored 2 in the bottom of the third to tie this ball game up. Johnny Cueto working on Albert Pujols, who's got an RBI tonight. Drove in the Cardinals' first run. On the ground out, as you see there. And that ball stays fair somehow. Cueto, a strike to Votto to retire Pujols. How about Johnny Cueto's defense? Go back to the end of the last inning.
Pretty good for a big guy, but here's where the pop-up that ended the inning. Watch him limp a little bit right there. You know he's had some foot problems, some ankle problems over the last couple of years, but despite that, check him out running down the line right here. This guy is a gamer. There is no other way around it. You know his foot is hurting big time, and he almost beats out an infield hit.
It was amazing at Bunt State Fair, the way that ball was put down. Or bunt, excuse me, swing and hit ball. But Johnny Cueto pounced on it and threw a strike to Joey Votto. So Matt Holliday, who was a strikeout victim, the one strikeout victim of the night for Johnny Cueto, will climb in. A big financial investment put in this young man, Matt Holliday, by the Cardinals. Very successful early on in his career at Colorado. Went to Oakland, and it just wasn't quite happening there. Last night, his 34th multi-hit game of the year. This one flared over the glove of Brandon Phillips and into shallow center field for a base hit for Matt Holliday. Tonight's game on Fox Sports Ohio is brought to you by your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers, where you can register to win the Tundra at Great American Ballpark. By JTM, food, family, fun. JTM. By Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. And by GMC, we are professional grade. Matt Holliday on at first base after his single, and it brings Colby Rasmus, the center fielder, to the plate. Reds and Cardinals tied at 2 in the top of the fourth here at Great American Ballpark. Another big house. And we would expect a big house tomorrow afternoon in the third game of this series. It's a 12:35 start here at Great American Ballpark. Bronson Arroyo and Adam Wainwright will be the starting pitchers. We hope you'll come down and join the party here at Great American Ballpark, as well as join us here on Fox Sports Ohio.
Well, we talked about the winning percentage leaders in the National League. They are Ubaldo Jimenez and Johnny Cueto. And the relation to that with run support is obvious. Those two also 1-2 in the league, and the most number of runs their team gives them.
And there at the bottom of it, you see the starter for tonight for the Cardinals, Jaime Garcia, standing at 12. 1-2 the count on Rasmus, with one out and one on. The one on is Matt Holliday at first. Each team with a couple of base hits. One error in the game. It belongs to the Reds. The Reds have left a couple stranded on base. Count 2-2 to Colby Rasmus. Now 3-2. Yadier Molina, who's homered already tonight. Strikeout number 2 for Jonny Cueto.
Well, we haven't seen Jonny Cueto throw too many off-speed pitches tonight, but that's a good one right there. He's got great arm action on it. He gets Colby Rasmus, who's a good fastball hitter, way out in front.
Well, the guy that's become the villain in the ballpark here tonight, Yadier Molina, the 2-out batter. Launched his 5th home run of the season into the left field stands in the 2nd inning.
Well, Cueto in the first at bat with the Yadier Molina went after him with fastball after fastball after fastball, essentially challenging the Cardinal catcher to turn on him, and he did. And he's getting a little smarter this time. Mixing him up a little bit. You've got to use your whole arsenal. No matter how high your emotions are flaring and running, you can't let that dictate how you pitch or how you play.
You mentioned Jonny Cueto hoping to pay back the Cardinals. He's allowed 12 earned runs to St. Louis in 16 innings of work this year. An ERA of well over 6. Molina accounted for the 2nd run of the night for the Cardinals with his long ball.
95-mile-an-hour fastball. He had thrown him really hard to Molina his first time around.
Starting catcher for the National League in the All-Star game this year for the 2nd year in a row. Cueto's one decision against the Cardinals this year, a winning decision, came in St. Louis in the first month of the season back in April. And that was a game, the first game of a weekend series at Busch Stadium. He got the win, pitched 5 innings, but did not return after a 2.5-hour rain delay. Count 1-2 on Molina with 2 out. Holiday at first base. Inside with a little something off speed.
Yeah, that was a changeup right there. Anytime you see that pitch come in there around 83, 84 miles an hour and move into a right-hander and away from a left-hander, that's a changeup, and he's got a good one. Now, that may have been a little bit of a slider right there. I see the spin on it right now, one of those backup sliders. Pitchers wish they could throw that when they wanted to.
Bottom dropped right out of it. Now the count runs full on Molina.
You know, this is the time when you really begin to watch Jonny Cueto very closely. I know he's only got 65 pitches. He shouldn't be fatigued right now, but you really don't know the toll of that emotional bottom of the first inning and what it will take out of him. He was right in the middle of all of it. And he came out throwing 96 miles an hour for the next 2 innings.
Holiday on the move as Molina goes the opposite way for a base hit. On his way to third goes Holiday, and he'll slide in safely. Nice piece of hitting by Yadier Molina.
Well, he's a pretty good hitter. He's turned himself into a darn good hitter. When he broke into the league, he couldn't hit much at all. But he's worked hard at it, and he's become a pretty good player. Offensively, he's always been very good defensively. And that's a slider that he takes the other way.
So Molina hit first, Holiday at third, and Skip Schumacher.
He's going to call Hernandez out, I think. No, I thought Jonny Cueto was calling him out. I think he needs a breather.
And Scott Rowland is going to walk in.
He's just going to replace a couple of divots down there in case he gets a bad hop. But I don't know whether this is to give Jonny Cueto a little bit of a breather or to kind of go over how he's going to pitch Skip Schumacher or what. But I think the Reds ought to pay very close attention to Cueto right here. I mean, he has been through a lot emotionally here in the first 4 innings of this ball game. I know you don't want to replace your pitcher after 65 or 70 pitches.
You can see him huffing and puffing.
But he's taken a lot of time between pitches. He's showing me that he's not the same pitcher that he was 2 innings ago. And it has nothing to do with pitch count.
That flare-up that occurred in the bottom of the first inning. Jonny Cueto was right, as you said, Chris, right in the middle of it, and it had to be pulled away. Chris Spire, now the acting manager, with Dusty Baker and Tony La Russa both having been ejected because of that exchange of tempers. Swing and a miss by Schumacher. Joe Patini, a former Major League infielder like Chris Spire, the bench coach running the show for the Cardinals now. 2-2 the score with 2 outs here in the top of the 4th.
Well, maybe all Jonny Cueto needed was a little bit of a rest.
Looks like it, doesn't it?
He's coming out pumping some of his best fastballs in 2 innings out there to Schumacher.
You mentioned it last night. Schumacher had been bothered by a wrist injury. He had a cortisone shot prior to the series over the weekend in Florida.
Missed a week. Came back as the big hero.
Last night he was, yes. 1-2.
Body language of Ramon Hernandez will tell you what he thinks of that call. You don't see a catcher turn to an umpire very often. When that happens, he is convinced. Well, you know, Ramon tried to give him a little bit of a frame job right there.
But you know what, Chris? Here's the other thing. Yadier Molina, who swiped second, he stopped halfway between second and first as he was looking back at the pitch. Yeah. He stopped.
Well, you got the pitcher on deck, so don't make a mistake right here with first base open.
2-2 the count. Runners at second and third now.
Well, he stood. I think he stopped because he saw Hernandez stand up thinking, all right, he's going to head down to the dugout right now. But you've got first base open right now and Jaime Garcia in the on-deck circle. You're pitching to a guy that hit a grand slam last night.
Two on and 2 out. There he goes. He'll complete the strikeout by throwing down to first, and the game remains 2-2. Reds and Cardinals after 3.5. The 4th here at Great American, our AT&T trivia question: how many seasons have the Reds won 100 games or more? We will have the answer forthcoming very shortly. How many seasons? Not enough. 2-2 the score. Bottom of the 4th here at Great American Ballpark. Johnny Cueto and Jaime Garcia, the pitchers who are working with this tie ball game in place. Garcia got creased a little bit in the last inning by the Reds, where they scratched their 2 across with a couple of base hits. Jonny Gomes will lead off the bottom of the 4th. And Jonny Gomes has been stuck on 99 career home runs for a while. Number 99 came on the 19th of July. What a day he had Sunday. 4 walks and 4 runs scored. Career highs in that game at Wrigley Field in Chicago. And as you like to talk about, Chris, this is a guy who wakes up swinging the bat.
Well, he's a very emotional player, and he was right in the middle of that melee as well. And not because he wanted to take a piece out of any particular Cardinal, but he wanted to protect his players. This is the kind of atmosphere and the kind of ball game, the kind of excitement that Jonny Gomes just thrives on.
Two 2-0 the count to the Reds left fielder, who will be followed by the right fielder, Chris Heisey. Now 3-0. So duplicating some of that patience that he showed Sunday at Wrigley Field. There's what Jonny Gomes has done at Great American this year. 9 of his 13 home runs have come right here. Started the night 5th best batter in the National League with runners in scoring position at over 370. All 4. 3rd walk, Garcia his issue.
Well, the walk that he issued last would lead off the top of the bottom of the 3rd inning, came around to score. Pitching coaches have warned their pitchers for years of the 80% rule, which is 80% of those leadoff walks come around to score. More of a threat than anything else, but it's surprising how often they do come around and haunt you.
Chris Heisey will stand in the box. Bounced out to third baseman Felipe Lopez. Chris Heisey did in his first at bat. 0 for 1 last night as a pinch hitter. The Reds lost to the Cardinals. Strike 1. Heisey playing in right field tonight. His 23rd start of the year. He first joined the Reds in St. Louis when he was first called up after the Chris Dickerson injury in Houston. As you heard Jim Day mention, Chris Dickerson was in Milwaukee's starting lineup tonight, playing right field and batting second.
It's going to be a good opportunity for him right there. You know, sometimes trades work out for both teams. Hopefully that's the case here.
And we understand from Mark Wagner a sac bunt for Chris Dickerson in his first at-bat with Milwaukee. Count 2-1 to Heisey.
We'll continue our Chris Dickerson watch, right?
Yes. If he took the soccer ball to Milwaukee. 2-1 to Heisey with Gomes at first base. Count now even. His major league debut against the Mets. And has 4 pinch hit home runs on the year. Chris Heisey does. It's the most in the major leagues, and he is 1 shy of the single season Reds record set by Jerry Lynch in 1961. Two and 2 the count. Gomes a brief lead at first. Heisey golfs this one into left center. And Holiday has it for the first out of the inning. This week on Fox Saturday Baseball, Aramis Ramirez and the Cubs head to St. Louis to take on Albert Pujols and these Cardinals in a showdown between bitter National League Central rivals as Chicago looks to play spoiler to St. Louis's playoff hopes. Fox Saturday Baseball, presented by Sprint, returns this week at 4 p.m. One out, Drew Stubbs at the plate. Stubbs was the Reds' first base runner, and Jonny Gomes almost got caught. Stubbs with a walk in the third inning. Ryan, Schumacher, for Pujols, double play. And it looked like there might have been a little inadvertent contact with Stubbs and Pujols at first. After 4 full, the Reds and the Cardinals tied at 2. Blast. And Yadier Molina continues to make himself an enemy of Reds fans. Hit his 5th home run of the season. That gave St. Louis at that point a 2-0 lead. The Reds have since tied it at 2-2, which is where it is here in the top of the 5th. And let's take a look at how the last half inning ended. Drew Stubbs grounding into a double play, but he and Pujols with a little inadvertent contact at first.
Well, inadvertent contact is one thing, but also a missed call by the first base umpire is a completely different thing. That was a long stride by Drew Stubbs at the very end, but watch the foot on the bag before the ball in the glove. Bang, bang, yes, a tough play for Mark Carlson, but he got it wrong.
And we also understand, Chris, they have made a scoring change, and Felipe Lopez has been given credit for a double on that ball that was originally ruled an error on Jonny Gomes. So you kind of had thought maybe that possibly could happen. And Garcia to lead off the inning, lofts this to Gomes in left field.
You know, I'm glad they made that scoring change. It does make a difference in the earned run for Johnny Cueto, but, you know, overall, I think that the job of the official scorer is just like the umpire. You know, you want to get the play right.
So a double for Lopez, no error for Gomes. 1 out here in the top of the 5th. And Brendan Ryan.
He could use a nice, easy inning right here. Johnny Cueto could.
Ryan bounced out to Roland in his first at-bat in the 3rd inning. Brendan Ryan, if you didn't see it or hear about it, last night when the bottom of the 1st was about to start, and as Chris Carpenter had finished his warm-ups, Brendan Ryan realized he did not have the glove that he wanted. And so the start of the half inning was held up while he had whatever glove he wanted brought out to him, and then when that half inning ended, Carpenter kind of dressed him down a little bit in the dugout.
Well, he dressed him down later on in the ball game as well when Juan Francisco singled to left field. They had Brendan Ryan playing snug up towards second base because Francisco's kind of a pull hitter. And he saw that ball squirt through the infield, and a meaningless run in the ball game, but a run that adds to the earned run average of Carpenter. And he let Brendan Ryan have it for evidently playing out of position. I was always taught as a pitcher that if you didn't like where your guy was playing, you can feel free to move him.
Which he did not do before that hit.
So.
Well, and this may be an ignorant question too, but for a guy that pretty much plays shortstop all the time, wouldn't you always have the same kind of glove? If it's somebody that plays infield and outfield, yeah, there's changes there.
Yeah, he may have had a problem with it. I don't know whether lacing broke on it or something like that. I don't know the inside scoop on that.
And Ryan will flare this one into left center. Gomes on the run. Second out. Both of the outs here in the inning have been flagged down by Jonny Gomes.
I think the bottom line on the whole thing, Paul, and it was noticed by the Reds players as well, is just the way that Chris Carpenter treated his own teammates was not very flattering. And there were some guys on the Reds who will remain unnamed who told me that, you know, if one of my pitchers said that to me, I wouldn't be very happy about it. We'd have to go talk about that somewhere.
Felipe Lopez, the two-out hitter. And Carpenter did try and get him down into the tunnel. You know, technology, though, allowed the exchange to be captured on video. So it wasn't so far out of play that it couldn't be noticed by viewers, Reds players.
Yeah, unfortunately, really, for the part of the players is that it's tough to keep anything private nowadays.
And Chris Carpenter was certainly hot in the middle of that flare-up that occurred in the bottom of the first here tonight.
But for the other team and players on the other team to notice in real time, that says something.
Sure. Felipe Lopez 1 for 2. If you missed it, he has now been given credit with a double. Led off the game. It was the ball originally ruled an error on Jonny Gomes. And Lopez with a slow roller. Votto can't get it.
Well, that one won't be changed.
E3. Error on the first.
Joey Votto tried to use his first base glove as a highlight cesta. He thought he was going to scoop the ball in one motion. Maybe he was planning to come over and tag the bag himself. Johnny Cueto did the right thing. Get to the bag, and he was going to flip it to Cueto and maybe thought that was his only play. This is one of those balls that's kind of in no man's land. Although you're a little better off to flip it with your hand because you give the pitcher a better view of it. Coming out of the glove, it's hard to pick up sometimes. A lot easier out of your hand. Johnny has to buckle down here and pick up a little error on his teammate.
The 2 outs he'll deal with John Jay. It was John Jay in that first inning who laid down a sacrifice bunt that moved Lopez from second to third. He then came in to score on an RBI groundout by Pujols. 2-2 score, top of the 5th. Cueto ahead in the count on 2 pitches, both strikes to John Jay. It has been a matter of endurance on the mound for Johnny Cueto. Lopez chased back by Cueto. These 2 teams play tomorrow afternoon, then an off day Thursday. The Reds over the weekend will host Florida. The Cardinals go home to take on the Cubs. And these 2 teams will hook up again on Labor Day weekend in St. Louis. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, September 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Separated by 1 game in the standings right now, with the Reds atop the National League Central.
Well, you can imagine that this Cardinal outfielder is pretty tough on right-handed pitching. They've got left-hander Rasmus and left-hander John Jay, who so far in his rookie season is hitting the ball pretty well, especially against left-handers. Halladay hits both righties and lefties. He's just a very good hitter. Overall, they are .297. as a trio against right-handers. Now, John Jay's interesting stat to me is that he, on balls that he puts in play, there's a statistic out there called batting average on balls in play. He's hitting 425. The average for a ball hit in play is about 300. So he's hitting above his hitting level right now. He's getting better results than what he deserves based on maybe good luck. So I would suggest that between now and the end of the year, you're going to see some kind of a drop-off in his production just based on statistical analysis.
Oh, we mentioned last night he led the whole National League in the month of July, hitting 431. Count now even at 2-2.
Of course, when he's locked in kind of a platoon position or situation with Ryan Ludwig, and then Ludwig gets traded, and they give him a vote of confidence, sometimes that can get you going.
Down on a strike, inning over. Still 2-2, Reds and Cardinals here in Cincinnati, middle of the fifth. Ball game and fireworks. Join the Reds as they take on the Marlins this Friday at Great American, and stick around for the free post-game fireworks spectacular. Thanks to Toyota. Get tickets now by calling 513-381-REDS or log on to Reds.com. 2-2 the score, Reds and Cardinals here in the bottom of the fifth inning. And we certainly don't want to hide the fun from our viewers, but in a game that has seen tempers blow up and everything, those who've come to games here at Great American, as well as other events, as you see Jaime Garcia getting ready, in between innings, you see the Kiss Cam promotion, which is generally focused on couples who come to the game together. Some people tend to hide from that camera when it happens, but anyway, toward the end of that little segment, they took a shot in the Cardinal dugout of Chris Carpenter, and I believe it was Jason LaRue sitting next to one another. And Carpenter leaned over and planted a wet one on the side of LaRue, and Ramon Hernandez pounds that into center, but what a grab by Rasmus on the run in the gap in left center.
Boy, shades of Jim Edmonds right there. I'll tell you what, I had a little flashback for a moment. Rasmus gets a good jump and makes a leaping grab. This is a dandy defensive play. He made a nice play. In my recollection, on the last series the Reds played against the Cardinals here, grabbed one over by the Reds bullpen, grabbed a home run away. Pretty nice young player for 23 years old.
Isn't he, though? Well, Ramon Hernandez really put some good wood on that one.
Again.
Yes. Johnny Cueto, who laid down a sac bunt in the third inning. And that was the inning in which the Reds scratched both of their runs across. That's a fair ball. 2-0. The RBIs belong to Brandon Phillips and Joey Votto. So 3 pitches and 2 outs right here for Garcia. And Brandon Phillips at the plate. Now, right now, it's just down to business for those two. Phillips now hitless in his last 12 at-bats. Tied with Joey Votto and Ricky Weeks for the lead in the National League when runs scored. Whoa. With 79 runs. That's a slip. One and one to Phillips with 2 out.
You know, Brandon overall, if you look at his career numbers, is about a 265, 267 batter. This year, for a while, he was over the 300 mark. He hovered around 290 for a while. Now he's down to 270 or 283. But the good thing about Brandon this year is that
right field.
His batting average is right on as far as balls in play, so he's not going to vary too much. In fact, he's got a better chance of doing a little upside.
Still tied at 2.
At 2 in your Central Division showdown between the Reds and the Cardinals. Jim Day here just beside the Reds dugout, and as you saw at the beginning of this game, the bench is cleared and these two teams do not like each other. We want to know out there in Cincinnati land, who is your most disliked team now in Cincinnati? Text 1 for these very Cardinals who just went toe-to-toe with the Reds. Or is it the Steelers, the much-hated Steelers in that AFC North division? Is it the Michigan Wolverines for you Ohio State fans out there? Or text 4 for Notre Dame football, of course, stealing Brian Kelly away from UC. Text your votes to 37664. 37664. Standard text message rates apply. Well, the results coming up. This one should be very interesting. I imagine that the Cardinals would probably have been down on that list, but raise them up now, boys.
That's a slam dunk right now tonight, you would think. Albert Pujols to lead off the top of the 6th for St. Louis in said tie game.
You say a slam dunk, you of Ohio State football
tonight.
And basketball broadcasting?
Tonight.
Forget about that team from up north?
Pujols base hit center, but keep in mind, too, Ohio State has been beating Michigan like a tied down goat in the last half dozen years. So Pujols with his first base hit of the night.
That poor goat between Marty and Ohio State.
Well, there you are. The Pittsburgh Steelers starting to show up pretty strongly.
I'll tell you what, if the Cardinals are right there with the Steelers, that's showing me something.
Yeah, and that's the truth. You know, when somebody was talking, it might even been Jim Day earlier, as holiday hits. You know, a lot of us are the generation we grew up in the old National League West when it was the Reds and the Dodgers, and don't know that there was ever a real, you know, situation of bad blood or anything with the Dodgers. It was just two very talented teams going at one another. And the Reds and the Pirates used to have some of their little brouhahas. Back when Pedro Borbon hit or bit whoever it was he bit, I can't remember. Now the Steelers have overtaken the Cardinals. But the Reds and the Cardinals were in different divisions until the realignment. Going to get lefty in that swing is Holiday.
Two pretty good pitches to Matt Holliday. You know, if you look at the basic numbers, like batting average, you think Holliday's having a typical Holiday year. Yes, he's hitting his home runs, but he's not getting anywhere near the number of extra base hits that he did when he was in Colorado. I mean, nowhere close. And no sooner do I say that, he bangs one off the wall.
Yes. Gomes having a little trouble early on. Here comes the throw to the plate, but in safely. Comes Pujols and the Cardinals. And the RBI double by Holiday have taken a 3-2 lead.
It looks like Gomes just lost his footing out there in left field, and that enabled Albert Pujols to run through the stop sign, thrown up there by the third base coach Jose Akendo. He just wasn't going to stop for nothing. This ball ripped off the wall, a hanging breaking ball on an 0-2 count. Not a good pitch by Cueto. Gomes goes over, slips as he goes to get to it, and right there opens up the opportunity. Pujols looks over his shoulder and says, you know what, Jose Akendo, you're not stopping me. And he runs right through the stop sign, comes home ahead of the relay throw, and the Cardinals go ahead. So I was getting back to Holiday. You know, Holiday's hitting 300. He's hitting his home runs. He's got 21 bombs. But he only has 31 extra base hits. When he was playing for Colorado, at the end of the year, he had 92 extra base hits, 84 extra base hits. He only has 31 this year. He's on a pace to hit about 45, maybe, which is way off his pace. That's a very few extra base hits, or a lot of singles for a guy making $120 million over 7 years.
That RBI is the 69th that he's had of the year. While Bill Bray is getting busy in the Reds bullpen, as Colby Rasmus, with nobody out, will step in. A run in already for the Cardinals. Rasmus tonight 0 for 2. One of 4 of Johnny Cueto's strikeout victims. (3-2) St. Louis. Cardinals scored once in each the first and second inning, and once here. The Reds got both of their runs in the third. The Reds trying to protect a one-game lead in the division. Fouls on a bunt attempt. So now 1-2. There's Matt Holliday after an RBI double and at second base. May bring another run in as Rasmus lines it down past first into right, and the Cardinals with a 2-run lead. Rasmus will motor in with a stand-up triple. So 4-2 St. Louis.
Now, not all that bad of a pitch by Jonny Cueto. Looked like a slider down, but out over the plate and ripped right down the line. They did not expect him to hit that ball there. And it got away from Chris Heisey. I think they're going to give him a double. What are you doing trying to field that ball with one hand? Well, anyway, it goes as probably a double, and then an RBI and an error on Heisey. 2 errors in the ball game for the Reds, both by outfielders.
And the Cardinals now with a 2-run lead. And Yadier Molina, who's already had one big blow on the night, will send this to right field, where Heisey gets it near the line. Tagging and coming home is the runner, and another run tacked on for the Cardinals, as scoring is Rasmus. So a sacrifice fly and an RBI by Yadier Molina, and it's 5-2 St. Louis.
Well, despite the outfield errors in this inning, and there have been a couple of misplays, you can't lose the fact that they have hit 3 balls pretty doggone hard off Jonny Cueto. He's right up around the 97 pitch mark, and looks like that will be it, as Chris Spire, the acting manager, after Dusty Baker was booted, looks like he's going to make a pitching change.
For the Cardinals now with a 5-2 lead over the Reds here in the top of the 6th. Our Skyline Chili called to the bullpen as Bill Bray will enter to replace Jonny Cueto. 5-2 St. Louis. The Reds trailing 5-2 to St. Louis. Jonny Cueto's night is done, as the Cardinals have scored 3 here in the top of the 6th, and some trouble defensively has been part of that. A couple of errors have been committed here. So right now Jonny Cueto on the hook if it stays the way it is for his 3rd loss, and there's Bill Bray.
Now Bill Bray comes in because the left-hander Skip Schumacher comes up. They wanted to get Cueto out. He's already hit around the 100 pitch mark. Bray very good against left-handers. Not a good swing right there on the first pitch slider by Schumacher.
Bray an inning of work last night and struck out a couple of Cardinal batters. Over for tonight for Brendan Ryan. Gomes tracking in left. 2 gone. So Jaime Garcia, the pitcher, bounce back to the mound and hit a fly ball to left field. Garcia swings it as he throws him. He's in a 2-strike hold against Bill Bray. Seven total base hits in 2010 for Jaime Garcia. He started to head to the dugout.
Only one guy in the ballpark didn't think that was a strike. And he was the guy that whose decision counts.
Yes. You don't see that very often. Now he can take a seat. But the Cardinals put 3 on the board here in the top of the 6th. 5-2 St. Louis. Crowd around him. Tony La Russa and Dusty Baker both ejected. Everybody involved fortunate that no one seemed to have been injured. Tempers escalating. Our Coors Light Freeze Cam brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light. That was Jeff Suppan crawling out from under that scrum. But the Cardinals with 3 runs in the top of the 6th to take a 5-2 lead. Paul Giannis, Joey Votto, Scott Rowland will be the first 3 to bat against Jaime Garcia here in the bottom of the 6th. Giannis 0 for 1 with a walk. Aaron Miles has come into the game for the Cardinals to play second base. Was in spring training with the Reds. Second tour of duty with the Cardinals, Aaron Miles.
Really, it came down at the end of spring training to a couple of players, if you don't include Drew Sutton into that, maybe Chris Burke, but it came down to Aaron Miles and Miguel Cairo for an extra spot on the roster. As it turned out, Cairo won it for the Reds. Miles didn't make it for the Reds, decided not to be part of the Reds organization in the minor leagues, and the Cardinals signed him.
Paul Giannis now looking at a 3-1 count. Miles a week or so ago got called in to pitch for the Cardinals late in the lopsided game. Felipe Lopez also pitched last week in a game in which they got knocked around. And Paul Giannis trying right field. John Jay has it for the first out. Time now for the answer to our AT&T trivia question. How many 100-win seasons have the Cincinnati Reds had? 100 or more. And 4 of them. And all 4 of those seasons saw the Reds in the World Series. 40, 75, and 76, they were winners. In 1940, beat the Detroit Tigers. Of course, 75 beat Boston. 76 over the Yankees. And then 70. The Reds lost to Baltimore. Joey Votto standing in. An RBI base hit in the third, following a strikeout in the first. Some word came out about some of the details of next year's schedule, and the Reds will go to Baltimore next year in interleague play. The first time they will have done that since interleague play started. Their first trip to that Maryland town since the '70 World Series. Votto ahead in the count at 3-0 from Jaime Garcia. Ball four.
Hey, Reds fans, for great food with family and friends this summer, think JTM. Food, family, fun, JTM.
Fourth walk Garcia has issued.
Now, the Reds have only taken advantage, really, of one of the walks. He's danced around the other three, at least so far, with Votto on at first with one. Like to make a little noise in this inning. At least get one or two of them back to try to get into that Cardinal bullpen. He's been very efficient, Garcia has, with his pitches.
Scott Rowland looks at a strike. Rowland in the role of peacemaker in the bottom of the first, trying to calm things down when everybody came off the bench, and then he found himself in the middle of all of the difficulty. It appeared that he had Yadier Molina pretty much kind of out of the picture and calmed down. Rowland and Molina and Wainwright were kind of standing together behind the plate. And that's when Chris Carpenter came in and things got escalated.
Well, you really don't know what has gone on in the past between teammates like that. You don't know what their inner feelings really are. And, you know, Scott Rowland left St. Louis somewhat unceremoniously when he was traded for Troy Glaus to the Toronto Blue Jays, essentially in a swap of third baseman that would get one out of town because he didn't get along with Tony La Russa. But there may have been something else going on. It takes a hot night in the summer of Cincinnati to bring it out.
1-2 the count on Rowland. Well, one thing is pretty certain. Bob Watson in the commissioner's office going to be meting out a little justice.
Yeah, and unfortunately it may affect both of these teams.
And if so, you hope close to an even level.
You hope so. Actually, I hope they let him on the Cardinals a whole lot more than the Reds.
Well, you hope, yes. 2-2 the count to Rowland with Votto at first. And there'll be a few folks that'll be a little lighter on the wallet.
You want to put a mop on my head, I'll be the judge.
And your sentence would be?
Ban them all.
Just trying to picture it.
You know, for whatever problems Jaime Garcia had his last time out, that was against the Houston Astros. 5 innings of 10 hit, 8-run baseball, 4 of them were earned. And the time before that, 6 innings of 3-run ball against the Mets. He's figured it out tonight against the Reds. He has given up only 2 hits. Danced around so far 4 walks, but his breaking stuff has been especially sharp.
Rowland checks, and he'll trot on down to first. On the 5th walk issued by Garcia. And the 2nd in a row.
Now that'll prompt a trip to the mound by Dave Duncan, and in the absence of Tony La Russa to make the pitching change, it'll be Duncan that makes the change right here. He comes a couple of steps out of the Cardinal dugout and motions down to the right field line. That's where the Cardinal bullpen is. Now we're going to see a reliever here coming in for Jaime Garcia.
Bottom of the 6th, the Cardinals with a 5-2 lead, but the Reds with a threat cooking. Of course, the Reds a 1-game lead on the Cardinals. You see what's going on in the East with the Braves, a 1.5-game lead over the Phils. San Diego setting the pace by a 1.5 over the Giants in the West. And in the wild card, it's the Giants 1 game better than both the Cards and the Phillies. And a new pitcher has come out of the bullpen for St. Louis, with the Cardinals owning a 5-2 lead. Going out of the game for St. Louis is Jaime Garcia, and in is Fernando Salas.
Well, from one Mexican-born left-hander to a Mexican-born right-hander, Fernando Salas, signed by the Cardinals 3 years ago, and he is in his 11th ball game.
Just called up on Wednesday. And he's been another who's been back and forth quite a bit between St. Louis and Memphis. 2 on and 1 out for the Reds, and Jonny Gomes is at the plate. Jonny Gomes atop the standings in the National League in the hardest batters to double up in at-bats. I was surprised when I saw that.
Well, he's a fly ball hitter. That might be one reason why. I mean, it not necessarily relates to speed. It's how often you put the ball on the ground. One thing Jonny Gomes has done is knocked runners in with runners on base. He's had 98 chances to hit into a double play this year, and he's hit into 1. It's not the only time in baseball you ever see a stat that comes up as 1%.
Yes. 1-1 pitch, Salas to Gomes. 1-2.
This guy looks like a slider machine.
A 25-year-old, as you said, the right-hander from Mexico, Noel Fernando Salas. Jonny Gomes still hunting for career home run number 100. Shows patience.
Got him looking outside, teased him off the plate. You know, sometimes you get a hitter looking in a particular place for it, and then you can put it 2 or 3 inches farther away, and he'll chase it. Gomes didn't chase that one.
2-2 with 2 on.
Had a hanger there, boy.
He did, didn't he?
Take another look at the pitch that Salas didn't want to throw right there, and Gomes just got a little bit late on.
Jonny Gomes started the night hitting .372 with runners in scoring position. 5th best in the National League.
Sometimes you hang a pitch and the hitter sees it so well he just overswings. You can't believe he's getting it.
2-2 the count. Down on strikes, Jonny Gomes for 2 outs.
Well, he had him velocitized after pitch of sliders. Pitch of speeds in the 80s. He finally goes upstairs the ladder with a 93-mile-an-hour fastball.
So a 2 out, and Fernando Salas having struck out Gomes. Jim Edmonds on to pinch hit for Chris Heisey. Started last night in center field. Our Geico direct quote of the night comes from Jim Edmonds. Some of his comments from last night on moving from the bottom of the standings with Milwaukee to the top of the standings with the Reds in the trade that brought him yesterday in exchange for Chris Dickerson. Jim Edmonds 0 for 4 last night. There are those standings. 2 out, 2 on. Votto at second. Rolling at first, and the Reds down 5-3 to the Cardinals here in the bottom of the 6th.
Good breaking ball hitter, always has been.
He's gone deep 8 times this year. With his 2010 season having him reside in Milwaukee prior to last night. And getting back as Votto as Molina was ready to take a shot at it. Back-to-back walks after 1 out to Votto and Rolen, who set this stage here in the bottom of the 6th. Edmonds' .281 batting average. Hit a pinch hit homer against the Reds earlier this year in Milwaukee. And the count 3-0. And this also is the 2000th career appearance for Jim Edmonds. 4, so the bases are loaded on 3 walks. This the first by Salas.
I'll tell you, it appeared to me that Fernando Salas wanted nothing to do with Jim Edmonds. I mean, it looks like he likes his slider so much, and it's not all that effective of a pitch against a left-hander that he don't want anything to do with the left-hander.
So a 2 out and the sack's full. Drew Stubbs walked and bounced into a double play. And there's a look at his bases loaded career stats. Does this feel like the playoffs?
You know, Drew Stubbs is in the driver's seat right here. He's the guy that ought to recognize that the pressure is on the pitcher. And maybe that's what Yadier Molina is telling his pitcher, because he's a pretty good catcher. But Stubbs has got to make sure that he gets a pitch in his zone that he likes and he's looking for. Don't become an easy out on a pitch that's a pitcher's pitch here just because you think it might be hittable.
Here's a look at the sacks full of Redlegs, who trail by 3 and with 2 outs. Drew Stubbs against Fernando Salas. Earlier this year against the Cubs, Drew Stubbs with the bases loaded on April 9th. Base hit. Votto scoring. Roland being waved around. Edmonds is caught off second base and thrown out to end the inning. Both runs will score as Jim Edmonds is thrown out. And here's another look at it. 5-4, Reds trail by a run. Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky Honda dealers. Visit BuyCincinnatiHondaDealer.com for current offers. By Wendy's, you know when it's real. And by Hollywood Casino. Nobody has to yell action here. It's Hollywood Casino, Lawrenceburg. Well, a 2-run base hit by Drew Stubbs gets the Reds within a run of the Cardinals. Jim Edmonds then gets caught off second base to end the inning, but a clutch base hit by Drew Stubbs.
You know, I think what happened right here with Matt Holliday coming in took him so long to get to the ball. Then he kind of double pumped right there. And I would suggest that Jim Edmonds thought he was so certain that that ball was going through to the plate, because they looked like they were going to be able to get the trail runner very easily. That was Scott Rowland. Rowland was very late getting to the bag, and I thought he was going to be a dead duck at home, but Holiday couldn't get the ball out of his glove in time. So Edmonds gets his pocket picked. He ends up going to right field. Stubbs goes back to center, and Logan Ondrusek, he of the scoreless inning streak, is on the hill for the Reds.
Brendan Ryan, the leadoff batter here on the top of the 7th. So the Reds climb back into it and get within a run, trailing 5-4. Logan Ondrusek working on Ryan, and those walks came back to haunt the Cardinals. 3 walks in the inning, 2 of them in a row.
Yeah, need a nice easy inning here for the Reds. Get them back in there and get that swinging at bat while they've got a little momentum going.
You mentioned Logan Ondrusek of the scoreless inning streak. 22 consecutive innings without yielding a run. Second on the season to the streak of 30 scoreless innings thrown up by All-Star Arthur Rhodes.
Well, this bullpen has been lights out.
Ryan to left. Gomes giving chase, but it'll bounce in front of him for a base hit by Brendan Ryan. So 1 on for the Cardinals. Reds baseball on Fox Sports Ohio is going interactive Sunday during the Reds-Marlins game. You can be part of the broadcast by going to foxsportsohio.com and asking your question, and we'll answer it on the air. It's the Fox Sports Ohio Interactive Game Sunday at 1, brought to you by the Emmy Award-winning Fox Sports Ohio High School Football Game of the Week. Top of the order for St. Louis, Felipe Lopez. He's reached base twice. Once on an error, once on a double. That was originally ruled an error, but changed. Cardinals by 1. But the Reds climbed within that 1 run with 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th. Ondrusek starts Lopez off with the ball. Logan Ondrusek last night, 1 inning, 1 hit allowed, and a strikeout recorded. And he gets Lopez fanning and missing.
That's a splitter grip. And Logan Ondrusek, who's got some pretty big paws, puts in his hand first, and then if he goes to a different pitch, it's easy to adjust.
Inside corner. Even from here, you can see the confidence from Ondrusek on the mound. Much different pitcher than the one that began the season.
And that's the way it ought to be. I mean, you hope that a young man is able to progress like that, and he's come along further than anybody ever thought.
See you later, Felipe Lopez, who's got a little something to say about it.
Felipe Lopez wants to know, was that on the swing or was that on the called strike? Let's take another look and see if we can determine. I think it's a called strike. He did not swing at that ball. Ball didn't come, or the bat did not come out in front of the plate. Made no attempt to actually swing at that. And I think that's got to go down as a looking.
Okay, if you say so, that's how I'm writing it down. It's good enough for me.
I keep scoring pencils, so it doesn't matter.
Well, understand. John Jay. 0 for 2 with a sacrifice bunt. That was after Lopez led off the game with a double. 5-4 Cardinals. Called strike. Ondrusek has posted an ERA of 0.65 in his 27 appearances since being called up from Louisville on the 1st of June. Opposite field, base hit for John Jay. Brendan Ryan hits third base, a double for Jay. And the Cardinals have got something cooking.
No hiding for Jonny Gomes out there in left field tonight. It seems like every other inning he's got a shot down the left field line that he's got to figure out a way either to block, play off the wall, battle the sun to get. And that's a good bit of hitting by John Jay. Man, oh man, got a fastball out over the plate and laced it down the line.
His 15th double of the year. So now the Reds are going to put Pujols on base and set up the force everywhere.
Now, this is the reason the Cardinals went out to get Matt Holliday. So the teams would do this fewer and fewer times. But, of course, with the base open in second and third in a one-run ball game, you're going to do this every time with Albert Pujols coming up.
This will be his 25th intentional walk received, which leads the National League. So it is a one-run lead for St. Louis, and the Reds hoping to set up a double play by doing this. Let's check in with Jim Day.
Hey, guys, when there's an inter-manager situation, I've seen many things come from the clubhouse, the manager trying to get a message to Chris Spire in this instance. I've seen clubhouse equipment guys bring a note. I've seen texting involved. I've seen going back into the tunnel and getting a word with the manager. I haven't seen one iota of that right now. This is Chris Spire's game. He has made every call. He took Cueto out of the game on his own. He gave the four fingers right there to walk Albert Pujols. So there has been nothing coming from the clubhouse. This is a Chris Spire managed game.
Well, and that's what the bench coaches are there for, to sit next to the manager and be prepared for this situation.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Paul Keels, because oftentimes it is the bench coach that makes the suggestion to the manager. Or at least they talk it back and forth and then decide what course of action they take in a ball game.
Chris Spire running the show for the Reds. Joe Pizzini, the bench coach, running things for the Cardinals. But, you know, Dave Duncan has been with Tony La Russa so long, that might be his input as much as Joe Pizzini's.
Yeah, you're right about that. And I think especially when it comes to pitching. But the input doesn't matter right now. It's the output.
Yes.
The output of Logan Ondrusek versus the output of Matt Holliday with the bases loaded.
Holliday with a couple of base hits on the night. A single and a double. Drove in a run in the sixth. And it's a high chopper that'll get into left field for a base hit. That's going to plate a couple of runs for St. Louis. So 2 RBIs for Matt Holliday. 7-4. And now another play at the plate. A third run comes in. 8-4.
Now we're going to look at least the third error of the night for the Reds and the third error of the night on a Reds outfielder. The high chopper finds a hole right here. A couple of feet to either way. That ball's going to end the inning. But he finds the spot. Gomes comes up firing, and he fires it over the head of Ramon Hernandez. There's Logan Ondrusek, kind of beats it around a little bit. Then he sees a guy going to second. He says, I'm going to get him. Oh, but Brandon Phillips says, hey, there's a guy at the plate. Albert Pujols, again, heads up base running, and they've stretched the lead to 3. Man, oh man. Every time you battle back, you give it up.
Incredible. Some heads up base running by the Cardinals to help force the issue. So Colby Rasmus at the plate, and still just 1 out. Holliday will get credit, we would guess at this point, at least for 2 RBIs.
Yeah, but Albert Pujols scored from first base on a simple ground ball hit to left field.
A single, 2 RBIs, and an error on Gomes in left.
You got to hand it to Pujols. This guy is heads up all the time.
That's why he's been the MVP and could be again. Rasmus with an RBI double in his last at bat.
Now here's the play again. Base hit by Hal Holliday going into left field. Here comes a throw by Gomes. He'll airmail the catcher. Ondrusek will pick it up. but he'll kind of kick it around a little bit. Then someone will yell to him, second. He fires a second, but here comes Pujols. He's waiting for that play to fire to second, and Phillips can't get the ball back to Hernandez in time.
And it's a 4-run lead for the Cardinals.
Yeah, 4-run lead. I said 3-run lead.
And the count 3-1 now on Rasmus.
And he's doing a little hitting coaching from the dugout.
Yes, he is.
Telling Colby Rasmus, watch the big old curveball.
Called strike. There goes the scoreless streak for Andrusek.
You know, interesting note, we wondered always what happens to the Cardinals and to Matt Holliday after you walk Albert Pujols intentionally. Well, it's happened 15 times this year. And he is 5 for 15 and has picked up 10 runs batted in, including tonight.
Grounded at bottom. Covering Andrusek. Get the second out. Runner advances on to third. Matt Holliday. So 2 are down. And Yadier Molina. A homer, a single, a stolen base, and 2 RBIs. And now Paul Lessard, the Reds trainer, is going to walk out to take a look at Logan Andrusek along with Brian Price, the pitching coach.
I'm not sure if he called him out there or they saw something. I wonder if he may have jammed his finger or something on that ball that got away from Hernandez, the throw from Jonny Gomes behind home plate. Looked like he was talking about his fingers a little bit, but evidently it's a non-issue.
And he'll turn his attention to 2 outs with Molina. This is the second straight inning the Cardinals have scored 3 runs, which followed the Reds putting 2 on the board in the bottom of the 6th. Matt Holliday at third base. The inning started with a single by Brendan Ryan following a strikeout of Lopez. John Jay double. Pujols, the intentional walk that you mentioned, Chris, and then a single that drove in 2 for Holliday and an error that allowed a third to come in. Molina was swinging for the downs on that one. Logan Andrusek is the third Reds pitcher. He followed Bill Bray, whom followed starter Johnny Cueto. Now 1-2. Now this is a game that from very early on was high emotion, high tension, and now the crowd here at Great American is in a hush. But Andrusek a strike away from ending the inning. And he gets it. But the Cardinals score 3. 8-4 St. Louis after 6½. Tap of the bat on the shin guard. Words. Bench is empty. And very fortunate that nobody was injured. Chris Carpenter found himself up against the wall. Jonny Cueto, the starting pitcher, in the midst of it. La Russa and Baker both ejected. And certainly more to come. And that led us to our text poll earlier. Who's the most disliked team in Cincinnati? The Steelers. All righty. Baseball fans, now's your chance to enter to win a Fox Sports Ohio Meyer prize pack. Text the word Meyer to 37664. Now to be entered. Good luck. We go to the bottom of the seventh here at Great American. 8-4. The Cardinals with the lead over the Reds. And Ramon Hernandez will lead off. Juan Francisco in the on-deck circle. And then back to the top. There's a look at what Ramon has done tonight. Last night, a solo homer to right field. Fernando Salas continues to work out of the bullpen. He followed Jaime Garcia, the Cardinals starter. The Reds managed to get within a run. Hernandez, a fly ball. Aaron Miles in shallow center. Puts it away for the first out. Jeff Picoro.
Well, thank you, Paul. Tonight, Homer Bailey pitched for the Louisville Bats, but he did not start. The reason why, I talked to Walt Jocketty before the game, and Walt said the pitching rotation here in Cincinnati is pretty much set over the next month, barring injury. That being the case, the way Homer is pitching now, the only way he can help this club is by coming out of the bullpen. So they wanted to see if he could get warmed up in between innings and boom, come in and pitch. Chris Welsh, you were a starting pitcher. You have a routine down 20, 30 minutes before the game. You get into getting loose and throwing. How is it different now for Homer as he goes to a relief pitcher's role? And what does he have to, what type of adjustments, I guess, is the question, does he have to make now? Tonight was very good. 1 inning, 1 walk, lowered his ERA to 2.37 in Louisville.
Well, it's a major adjustment. There's no question, I think, for Homer Bailey, especially because he is a guy that has always been a starter. And if you ever watched him, if you ever come to the ballpark early and watched Homer warm up, boy, he has a prolonged warm-up procedure that he goes through before he even gets on the mound and starts to throw. But that's all going to have to be shortened up considerably. You can do it. You just have to make more of a mental adjustment, I think, than anything else. It'll take a little bit of time for Homer to do that, but there's no reason to think that he wouldn't. Consider also that when Homer Bailey comes up here, and he will be up here, that they will use him probably as a long reliever. And you'll get a little more time as a long reliever than you will as a short guy or the left-handed specialist out of the bullpen. So they'll make sure he has enough time to get loose and get ready before he comes into a ball game.
Pitch hitter Juan Francisco strikes out with a second out of the inning. He delivered an RBI single last night in a pinch hitting role. So Francisco down on strikes. That is the 4th strikeout by Cardinal pitchers tonight. Back to the top of the order in Brandon Phillips. Aaron Harang, by the way, worked today here at Great American. Threw about 59 pitches. And afterwards, in talking to a bunch of the media guys down in the clubhouse, Aaron talked like he felt fine. And his comments were he thinks what will be next is a rehab start.
Well, that means that they would shortcut and go right past a simulated game and then go down to a rehab. Normally what you do is you throw a few bullpens, then you have a simulated game in front of your big league pitching coach, your GM, your manager, and so on, and then you go down on a rehab. So that's pretty good news if you can get Aaron Harang back and get him back right.
There's a look at some of the work he did here at Great American earlier today.
That all said, you've got to be able to build up your arm strength. And he's been out for so long that, it may take him a little bit to get back up to a point where he can pitch, 90 to 100 pitches. That's certainly on the minds of a general manager and advisors when you're thinking about inserting a guy back into the rotation, because you certainly don't want to burn your bullpen out by bringing a guy back who cannot physically go deep into a ball game even on a good night.
1-2 the count. Brandon Phillips. He has an RBI on the night, but still searching for a hit. 8-4 St. Louis. Into the bottom of the 7th inning. Phillips gets his first base hit, pounding it into center field. So with 2 outs, he's on at first.
I've still got a lot of baseball to play.
That ends an 0 for 13 hitless streak for the Reds All-Star second baseman. Paul Janisch 0 for 2 with a walk. And there's a look at what he's done in the late frames. Native Texan Paul Janisch. Now 1-1. On deck, Joey Votto. These two teams will conclude this series tomorrow afternoon. 12:30 is when it starts here at Great American. Reds live at 12 noon here on Fox Sports Ohio. And Phillips will get second on that. A wild pitch, as you would have guessed, is charged to Fernando Salas. That game tomorrow, Bronson Arroyo pitching against Adam Wainwright. And if you're able to sneak out of work, we'd encourage you to come down here and experience a little of what's been almost like a playoff atmosphere for the last 2 nights. Paul Janisch holds. Even in the afternoon hours around downtown, you can see people walking around with their Reds t-shirts and everything. There's been a buzz this week. 3-1. That'll get out of play. We'd all certainly hope that buzz will continue into the weekend with the Florida Marlins coming in as well. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon games with the Marlins and the homestand. And then the Reds head west. Payout pitch, Fernando Salas to Paul Janisch. He's down on strikes, and the inning comes to an end after 7 full. 8-4, Cardinals with a lead. Of the year. That's the first glimpse of him there. He's also had a single, a stolen base, a sacrifice that resulted in another RBI, and his reputation defensively has preceded him. Yadier Molina what he's done defensively behind the plate has been a known commodity for a long time. But hasn't necessarily endeared himself to Reds fans with everything that's happened here tonight. 8-4 St. Louis with the lead. Nick Massett, the new hurler for the Reds.
He's had a lot of appearances, Nick Massett had 58 of them. He's gotten better as the season has gone on. 56 punch outs in 50 innings. And, you know, Mark Wagner has made this essentially a consistent trip to every pitcher that's gone out there tonight, saying, listen, after what happened in the bottom of the first inning, I want you to be aware that we're looking at taking no shenanigans out here. Don't start throwing inside. Don't start hitting people, or we're going to thumb you right out of here. And I think the umpires have taken control of this ball game, and something that could have really gotten out of hand. They've done a nice job.
Aaron Miles at the plate. Base hit. Came in defensively to replace Schumacher at second base.
Well, it's funny how some guys play real well for one team and can't play a lick for another. Aaron Miles came into camp and, quite frankly, did not look very good at all. But you put him in a Cardinal uniform, all of a sudden the guy's a 300 hitter. Good for him.
Wasn't he hurt there at the beginning of spring training as well, too? Had some injury?
Yeah, he did, but evidently that's all in the past.
Apparently. And another pinch hitter, Randy Wynn, will come up to hit for the pitcher spot. A veteran who has been around, Randy Wynn. He looks in at Massett. Wynn was just signed recently. Came from the New York Yankees. Spent time with Seattle, with the Giants, with Tampa Bay. Signed on the 5th of June as a free agent after having been with the Yankees. But 29 games this year for New York. Has played in 1,674 games without ever being in the postseason, which is the longest of any active major leaguer. But he seems to always find a home someplace. Checks, and they'll call a strike. So says third base ump Larry Vanover.
Well, we enjoyed that luncheon today over at McCormick and Schmitz, did we not, Paul?
Yes,
Keels,
we did.
The winners of our contest to have lunch with Jay Bruce, the broadcast crew. We got them all in a special room down there. And boy, did we chow down on some serious seafood this afternoon.
Joe Stevie was our winner. He and his fiance and his mom and his brother Josh were all there. The winner of our Fox Lunch Bunch giveaway. They're here at the game tonight. Came up, popped up, and visited us here in the booth.
I wonder if we can do that once a week.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of food, but there was a lot of food because somebody at the head of the table was ordering it.
They asked me to take charge.
And you did.
And as long as I'm not buying, I'll order whatever I can. Just trying to take care of you at the other end.
Randy Wynn sends this one into left center. Edmonds has it for the first out, or excuse me, Heising. And bring the family to the ballpark and save. Sunday, August 15th, as the Reds take on the Florida Marlins. It's our next Meyer Family Day. When one family member purchases a full-price ticket, the entire family gets non-premium tickets at half price. For details, call 513-381-REDS or go to reds.com/family. And forgive me, that was Stubbs. And enough chances you guess the right outfielder. So Brendan Ryan, who really got things started in the last inning, the 7th, with a single, and eventually came around and scored. And that gets away from Hernandez, and it will allow Miles to move on to second.
A real sloppy game played by the Reds this evening. They've got 4 hits, 3 errors. And that'll be a pass ball, not a wild pitch. I thought it may have hit the dirt, but upon further review, the official scorer decides, that goes on Hernandez. And I maybe thought it must have been a cross-up. And what normally happens, you get a cross-up, and the catcher's going to go out there and say, hey, what's that sign again? That's real close to a wild pitch. Looking up in the dictionary, there's a picture of that one right there.
Ryan right at Phillips. 2 down. A lot of those tonight have fallen in.
You're right about that. A lot of them have fallen in. The biggest one that has fallen in has been that two-hopper that went through the hole between third base and shortstop by Matt Holliday. This one nearly finds pay dirt, except for some acrobatic work by Brandon Phillips.
So Felipe Lopez, the 2-out batter. 8-4 Cardinals. But as you said a little while ago, Chris, still some time. Top of the 8th inning. Lopez a double that, had that not been changed, could be 4 errors for the Reds. That's been changed to a wild pitch, by the way, as you guessed it might. Giannis feeling that broken back grounder. Side retired. 8-4. Cardinals with a lead. Reds come to bat. Bottom of the 8th. Emma talks to the stars of the game and manager Dusty Baker on Reds Live, brought to you by King's Honda and the King's Auto Mall. Visit King'sHondaUSA.com. We also anticipate a good possibility of getting some sound from the Cardinals clubhouse after the game as well.
We hope so.
Be some interesting comments all across the board, you would think.
Trevor Miller, we saw him last night. Miller came in and pitched in the 8th inning, and except for base on balls to Scott Rowland, had a clean inning.
And he'll start the bottom of the 8th facing Joey Votto. 1 for 2 with an RBI and a walk for the Reds' first baseman. Down by 4. Bounced to Pujols, who bobbles it, but Miller covers the bag. 1 out.
Well, Paul, after that luncheon today, I had the opportunity to go give a talk about baseball to the ELS group, which is the English as a second language, ESL group. Yeah, English is a second language students at University of Cincinnati. And there were a couple of dozen kids there from all over the world. You don't realize how many young students from all over the world the University of Cincinnati attracts, and they're here in the summertime learning English. And it was a lot of fun. Trying to encourage them all to come out and watch some baseball. Most of them have never heard of it before.
Really? Well, that had to be. McClellan has been summoned from the St. Louis bullpen. And he'll face Scott Rowland. McClellan worked last night. There's a look at his numbers for 2010. Worked 1 inning, gave up a couple of hits, allowed a run as he yielded the home run to Ramon Hernandez. Scott Rowland tonight, a strikeout, a walk, and he fouled out to Albert Pujols. That walk came around and scored. A 2-run base hit by Drew Stubbs.
Well, this guy's a workhorse. Every year he pitches 68, 67, 66 games. He's on a pace to really exceed that this year.
And he gets Rowland swinging and missing. That homer Hernandez touched him up for last night was the 6th that McClellan has surrendered this year. Count 1-2 on Scott Rowland. 2-2 the count. McClellan and Ryan Franklin give the Cardinals that ZZ Top look in the bullpen. Rowland staying alive. This is a ball game that's probably run the gamut of emotions for everybody. Chris, you talked about Johnny Cueto and how he needed to kind of come back down to earth after that scrap that occurred in the bottom of the first. Scott Rowland was right in the middle of it. Still on strikes. Second time he struck out tonight. The 6 strikeout Cardinal pitchers have rung up. Another guy who was deep in the middle of that fracas, Jonny Gomes, the 2-out hitter.
Yeah, I think everybody was almost in the middle of it. If not, they were right there. Sometimes you see a bench clearing brawl, if you call it that, and oftentimes that's a misnomer because it's not a brawl, it's just only a little scuffle between a couple of players and everybody else is kind of squared off and standing there. But that was a moving pile.
Which was kind of surprising given the number of people around that pile at first. It really, on both sides, you could see some of them trying to play peacemaker.
Baseball's version of a mosh pit. Huh?
Yeah.
You would know better than I.
You know what? Only learned about that, what was it, about maybe 15 years ago when they had the jamming on Main down here and there was some problems that occurred, happened to be there. And
I fortunately missed that one.
Well, I should have. 0-2 the count to Jonny Gomes. He's gone on strikes. So the Cardinal bullpen doing the job after 8. It is 8-4 St. Louis. Dog play of the game. Top of the ninth, 8-4. Cardinals with a lead over the Reds and a new Cincinnati pitcher out of the bullpen. And it'll be Jordan Smith.
Jordan, the youngster that came right up out of Double-A not too long ago, 21 games now, and Mark Wegner, the home plate umpire, again will make a trek to the mound and say, hey, Jordan, I'm going to tell you the same thing I've told everybody else who's come in this ball game. We're looking out for it. I think the last thing a rookie like Jordan Smith wants to do is get involved in something like that. Right now, he needs to throw a 0 on the board to give the Reds a chance at all.
Well, we mentioned last night the combination of he and Andrusik, and right now it is Jordan Smith who's still on a scoreless run. He has not yielded a run since the All-Star break, which is a span of 10 games, 12 innings for Jordan Smith. And he starts off the top of the ninth against John Jay.
Jay had the key hit in that inning against Logan Andrusik. A line drive base hit over the head of Scott Rowland, a third. Good bit of hitting. Took a fastball and laced it the other way.
It was a double, the second hit of that inning, which is a 3-run frame for St. Louis. A productive night for John Jay. A sacrifice bunt in the first. And that double, and eventually came around and scored one of the 8 Cardinal runs. Young man from the state of Utah, Jordan Smith. Phillips. And Albert Pujols will come up. RBI in the first inning and a ground out, a single in the sixth, intentionally walked in the seventh, and eventually came around to score on a very heads-up base running effort by Albert Pujols. The ball got by Ramon Hernandez on a throw from the outfield. Logan Andrusik backed up through to second to try and get a runner there, but Pujols, who was at third, broke for home and got in. Prior to last night, Albert Pujols had gone 11 straight games without being walked. Coming into this series, he had homered in 4 of the last 5 games he had played in. And there was a lot of concern that he was heating up with the long ball, but he's shown all the other areas which he can be valuable to the Cardinals. Should St. Louis hang on and win? It'll be a tie top the division. Should the Reds come back and get the victory, they would have a 2-game lead. Inside on Pujols. So the count now 3-1. Second straight at bat that Pujols has received the walk. And those are the only 2 walks that Reds pitchers have given up tonight. So Matt Holliday. And he had the hit that broke it wide open in the 7th. A 2-run single. And then an error allowed a 3rd run to score. Smith on the 1st of July threw a perfect 9th inning. in Chicago to get his first major league victory, and then also on the 5th of July got an 8-6 win in New York. Got his first major league save out in Oakland, working in extra innings. By Rolla. So 2 on now for the Cardinals.
All right, 4 hits for Matt Holliday tonight. 3 singles and a double. He has been right in the middle of just about everything the Cardinals have done. That ball smashed.
Yes. So Colby Rasmus, we showed you the highlight of that catch he made on the ball hit by Ramon Hernandez. And a double in the 6th, an RBI, and then an error on that same batted ball. Continued the problems. You know, we looked at that catch, but you know, earlier in the year against the Reds in a series in St. Louis, he was having some trouble out in center field. Misjudging some balls. This one pounded to right, but Edmonds has got it. So 2 are down. And Yadier Molina comes up. He's had a very, very productive night. His 5th homer of the year in the 2nd inning. A single on the stolen base in the 4th. A sac fly that scored a run in the 6th. Tonight being his 15th straight game that he started, makes you wonder if Jason LaRue might get the start tomorrow afternoon. Rolling backhands behind the bag and throws out Molina. We'll go to the bottom of the 9th, and the Reds need 4 to tie, 5 to take the lead. 8-4 Cardinals. Visit us at Chrysler.com or see your local Chrysler dealer today. By Loveza and by Cincinnati Children's in the top 10 for all selected pediatric specialties in U.S. News and World Report's 2010 Best Children's Hospitals. Bottom of the 9th, here at Great American, the Reds trail the Cardinals 8-4. Cincinnati will have Jim Edmonds, Drew Stubbs, and Ramon Hernandez to lead it off here in the bottom of the 9th. In hopes of a comeback that would allow them to grab a 2-game lead and hopes of avoiding a loss that would tie them with the Cardinals for the lead in the National League Central. Kyle McClellan will get into his 2nd inning of work on the mound.
Well, the Cardinal pitching has certainly done a nice job for Tony La Russa in his absence tonight. They've handcuffed the Reds, even though they have had walks, and it was Jaime Garcia mainly that danced around the bases on balls that he gave up.
Jim Edmonds, who pinch hit in the 6th for Chris Heisey, got on a walk, then was thrown out. Went past second, got caught between second and third. That was on the ball that was hit by Drew Stubbs for a 2-run single. Edmonds still looking for his first base hit in a Reds uniform. Multiple All-Star, multiple Gold Gloves. He's had some seasons in which he's been significantly up in the MVP voting. And in his 17th season in the major leagues. He's won 8 Gold Gloves and has played in 4 All-Star games, and has had 7 years in which he's been part of postseason teams. The Cardinals in their World Series victory over the Tigers. Began his career way back with the Angels. And you were talking about that Fox lunch bunch with Joe Stevie today, and we heard Jay Bruce talking about how just in one game he's learned some things from Jim Edmonds about playing in the outfield.
Yeah, that was really an interesting conversation, and I think for that reason alone, Jim Edmonds is going to add a lot to the ball club for the future of this team. He was talking about to Jay Bruce about how when certain teams pitch certain hitters certain ways, where you play as an outfielder. If you pitch a right-handed hitter and you pound him inside, that right fielder ought to shade the line a little bit and come in shallow. Because if he hits the ball to right field, chances are he's not going to drive it in the gap. He's going to flare it over the second baseman's head or the first baseman's head. And to Jay Bruce, that kind of talk, and that was just the beginning of it, made a lot of sense. He'd never thought of it before, but there you're talking about a guy in Edmonds that has more than 15 years of major league service time. So his acquisition is going to pay off a lot of different ways.
So with 1 out, Drew Stubbs up. A 2-run single in the 6th for Drew Stubbs. He's walked and bounced into a double play. Started off with a strike. And another. Oh, right at McClellan. 2 gone.
Now that's the kind of way it's been for some of the Reds hitters tonight. When they've hit the ball hard, it's been right at them. I don't think you hit one back up the middle any harder than this. Kyle McClellan, look in your other hand, you got a gold watch.
Self-preservation. So it's down to Ramon Hernandez now. 1 base hit in 3 at-bats. Should Hernandez reach, Lance Nix would get a turn at the plate. He's in the on-deck circle. Last night, Ramon hit home run number 5 on the year. St. Louis with 3 runs in the 6th and 3 in the 7th after the Reds had scored 2 in the bottom of the 6th to get within 1 run. One and 1. Now 1 and 2. That's had so much occur in it is now down to 1 final strike. Tomorrow at 12:35, it's the Reds and the Cardinals in the finale of this series. Bronson Arroyo, Adam Wainwright. Arroyo 12-6, Wainwright 16-6. 12:35 first pitch, 12 noon for Reds Live here at Fox Sports Ohio. We anticipate another good and feisty crowd. Would encourage all to get down here and take part of what has been a playoff type atmosphere. 1-2, McClellan to Hernandez, and it's still 1-2. And the Reds are home of the weekend, hosting Florida Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. And it's been fun to see the city excited about this series.
It really has. You know, I know this. Fortunately for the Reds, after it looks like they're going to drop the first two, there's a lot of baseball yet to play. But even the other fortunate thing is they lose the first two, and you're still tied for first place. So you go down to the rubber game tomorrow. It'll be a good contest. A couple of real good right-handed pitchers going tomorrow, and Bronson Arroyo and Adam Wainwright. Anxious to see that matchup. Those guys will get together after the ball game, regroup a little bit, take a measure of themselves, and hopefully be able to come out and take the last of the three.
One ball, two strikes on Ramon Hernandez. Up the middle base hit for the Reds catcher to keep the night going. McClellan's got to feel like he's got a target on himself out there. So Lance Nix will pinch hit. Lance last night was 1 for 3 at a single and struck out twice. He started the game in left and was in the number 2 spot in the order. Started off with a strike from McClellan. Batting in the spot that would have been occupied by Jordan Smith. .274 with 4 homers and 15 RBIs. Hernandez leading off first, not being held, and a swing and a miss by Nix. Yet in either of these games to see Ryan Franklin, the Cardinal closer. He had his issues in their last game in Florida on Saturday.
Well, both the teams then have issues with their closer in the last game. The closers appeared. But in the way the margin of victory here for the Cardinals the last couple of days, the Russis crew hasn't had to worry about it.
Base hit Lance Nix. So 2 on with 2 out for the Reds here.
Well, Franklin was up and throwing last night when the last out was finally recorded. He never had to be called into the ball game. But if Brandon Phillips reaches here, you've got the tying run at the batter's box. And there's Franklin getting it loose just in case. And just in case is right now because here comes Joe Pettini. He'll go to the home plate umpire, Mark Wagner, in an effort to make a double switch.
Alan Craig is going to come in. It looks like he's going to go into center field.
Now the Cardinals are doing something I've never seen before. They've got the manager out to talk to the home plate umpire, Mark Wagner, about making the double switch. Now, that's Joe Pettini, the acting manager, in the absence of Tony La Russa. Meanwhile, Dave Duncan has gone out to take the ball from Kyle McClellan and give the ball to their closer, Ryan Franklin.
In 20 games with the Reds after he was acquired from Philadelphia.
Yeah, those aren't the kind of numbers that you really want to see out of your closer. Most closers have dominant numbers in one way or another. Either they strike out a lot of batters compared to innings pitched, and you see right here with Ryan Franklin that that's not the case. He strikes out really a batter every other inning, or close to it, as opposed to one batter per inning or more. But he's a pretty sneaky little pitcher. Got a sneaky fastball, nice breaking ball. He moves the ball around a little bit. Not your typical overpowering closer, but normally gets the job done.
Brandon Phillips in his career 3 for 13 against him. The ball bounces away from Molina, but not far enough to allow further advancement. Brandon Phillips tonight, a single, an RBI. Two out and two on. Nix at first, Hernandez at second. So Franklin's troubles continue in his first two pitches. Two 2-0. Cardinals a 4-run lead. But that last out has been elusive. Strike one. Franklin made his major league debut in 1999 with Seattle. Then in 2006 went to Philadelphia. Came in the back half of the season to the Reds. Has been with the Cardinals since 2007. Miles will gobble it up. And that'll be the ball game. And we have a tie atop the National League Central Division standings. 8-4. St. Louis with a victory over the Reds, who have lost 2 in a row. So the two teams are locked atop the division, and this has been a game that it'll be interesting to see the after effects and the emotional after effects.
Well, it will. I think for the most part, maybe the managers will pull each team aside and say, hey, listen, what happened tonight is an isolated incident. We can't go out there thinking about that tomorrow. You got to think about winning a ball game. You got to think about grabbing more than 6 hits in a ball game. They had 7 hits last night, 6 hits tonight. In each of the previous ball games, the Cardinals have had a dozen hits. So you got to get your offense going a little bit because you're facing a real good pitcher in Adam Wainwright tomorrow. Hopefully Bronson Arroyo will be on top of his game. We'll be here to bring it to you. But before then, we've got the post-game show coming up.
And with a preview of Reds Live.